Well, it's nice, too, getting up early. I have a quite nice garden, so whenever I get up, I water my plants and I get my morning routine going. Normally, I try to wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time it's like 9 o'clock, I'm done. I can go inside, maybe eat me some breakfast, hang out, and like my wife and my kids are just about ready to get up about that time, so I get a little morning time. And then, I get me a nap in. Everything works out nicely that way.
Yeah, it's a rough life, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, right?
It's killer. Yeah, it's smart, though, doing that. I hear, like, all these high-class, successful entrepreneurs out there, they're like, that's why they get up at 5 a.m. They get more shit done between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. than most people get done in an entire day because their family's sleeping still. You get up and just get shit done.
Well, I've also noticed that whenever you get up at that time, that's whenever your inspiration is flowing. You get a little bit of quiet time in the morning, and you really let them creative juices flowing, and that's whenever you get your good ideas. And I keep a book in my pocket that I write all this stuff down.
Yeah, that's smart.
But yeah, I normally get my best ideas in the morning time.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like when I write and stuff for the show or whatever I'm doing, it's always first thing. I'm up at 7 o'clock, and by 10 o'clock I've got, a bunch of shit written down. So it's definitely, I know what you mean. If you get up before, though, what time are you going to bed?
Oh, well, it depends. Sometimes if I am lucky, I can get to bed around like 9, 10 o'clock, something like that. But my schedule fluctuates so much that I could be going to bed at like midnight. But since I took me a nice nap during the day, I can wake back up at 4 and feel kind of rested.
Yeah, dude, I know, like, the experts out there say, like, it don't matter what time you go to bed, if you get up at the same time every single day, your body clock just kind of stays in check, which helps out.
Yes, and that is absolutely true. Regardless if I want to wake up or not, if I am dog tired, I still wake up super early just because I have.
This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
Hey. What is going on? Welcome to episode 192 of the Wise Guy Radio Show. This is your host, Jason Michael. And it's been a while since I've been on here. I apologize for not putting an episode out on the 21st like I said I was going to on my social media feed for those that saw that. I had my calendar completely screwed up. I was a whole week behind, so I was hoping to have had things going by then. But we are now on track, and my schedule at work has been crazy busy. I've just been all over the place. Have not had any time to wrap my brain around what's been going on in the world of glass in general. Especially being active and what have you. So I am now. I'm back on track. Got my routine going. I started a new schedule at work where I'm doing 4 days a week. And it's taken me probably about a month or two now it's been to get my brain wrapped around it and my sleep schedule and my regular routines and everything else going. So I know how you probably understand when things change, as we are all creatures of habit. And it makes, when we have routines, they get all thrown out of whack. Time change. I mean, everything, screw this up. No excuses. I'm just telling you my reality right now. But that being said, today's episode features Rex Estrada. Rex is one of two part of Blissful Glass. Him and his wife are co-owners and partners in that. And this conversation we had, man, I'll tell you what, I haven't had this type of conversation on the show yet. Him and I started off talking glass. He started early on at the age of 14. And we covered his history in glass, but we honestly talked more about everything else. And for those of you that like science and theory and all kind of fun stuff like that, you're going to definitely enjoy this episode because it's a lot of what we talked about. We talked about a lot of interesting stuff that myself personally am passionate about and turned on by in terms of the world of science, and a lot of reasons why I like glass so much and being a glass artist is because of all the science involved in it. So I definitely hope you guys enjoyed this. I'd like some feedback from you too, whether you DM me on Instagram or send me an email or whatever. Would definitely love to hear from you and see what you thought. Because again, this is definitely a first of a kind in a sense for this interview, just because the conversation went in a direction that I honestly was not expecting. And you'll hear me several times tell Rex how much I definitely appreciated the conversation, because it was a lot of fun. As you can hear, my voice is tired right now too. We just talked for 2.5 hours. So it's also one of the longer interviews we've had in a while too. And it was just, I could sit and talk about glass all day, but when it comes to our world and our lives and what's going on around us, I like to talk about other things. Not the negative things necessarily. Sometimes we do need to talk about that, but mostly the positive. And we definitely talked a lot about that today, so hope you enjoy it. And because I have not had my brain immersed into what's been going on in our community, in terms of the pipe community, I'm not really an understanding of what is going on out there in terms of trade shows and everything else going on. But I will be burying my face in the computer tonight, doing some research and finding out what's going on, so that as I get back on track with these shows, be able to update you on the trade shows and the shows outside of the trade shows in terms of individual glass artists, what's going on out there, and just a lot of fun stuff. All the new colors coming out, just a ton of things. But we do have a ton of interviews lined up, and this particular one is the one of many that are going to be kicking off this upcoming round of shows. So we're going to be ending out May with Rex, and then come June, I'm going to be getting into a lot of good stuff. So I'm super excited about what's up and coming. A little change of format too I'm going to be doing with the show, and it's as those of been listening to this for a while know that I'm a big fan of professional wrestling, or whatever you want to call it. And there's a particular podcast I listen to, and he does a segment on his show. The show's Sam Roberts is the guy's name. If you're a wrestling fan, I definitely recommend you listening to his show. He does a great interview to start off the show with, and then after the interview's over, he does what's called the State of Wrestling. And because I do want to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the glass community in general, I'm going to start doing a segment with this show after my interviews that's going to basically be like the state of glass. I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to come up with something else. But it'll give me a chance, because I've been wanting to do some more solo shows in a sense like I used to do. It'll give me a chance to get that part of what I've been wanting to do involved with these episodes, because my timing right now, it's hard for me to dedicate as much time into this show as I'd like to. I mean, honestly, if I could quit my job and do this on a full-time basis, I would, but obviously I got to pay my bills. Unless you want to sponsor the show and help out with that. But still, that being said, and I do appreciate those who are sponsoring this episode and the show in general. But yeah, so that being said, I'm going to be changing the format a little bit and experimenting. I did a little experiment where I was doing a little follow-up recap of the interview, and that's going to fall into that portion of the show. So these podcast episodes are going to get a little bit longer. Most of them have been about an hour and a half-ish lately. I know I've had some that have gone longer, like this one especially. But the shows are going to be probably around 2.5 hours long. I like the longer format episodes to do them personally, but I also enjoy listening to podcasts that are long like that. So I'm going to be, again, evolving this show as I have been doing over the years, and experimentation, and definitely want feedback from y'all listening to this to let me know what you think. So I have a little questionnaire I'm going to be putting out, which I need to put together still, but I'm going to be putting that out in the newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast yet, you can go to wiseguymedia.com. The little pop-up comes up. You can also go down to the bottom of every single page on the website. There's a little sign-up form there. You can sign up for the newsletter. I have not put a newsletter out in months, and I keep saying that I'm going to, and I have my girlfriend who's been wanting me to sit down with her to show her how to use MailChimp, which is what I use for all my emails, so she can actually help me get these newsletters out on a regular basis. She's been actually getting after me about doing it, so which I appreciate. And so pay attention to that. Those that have subscribed in the emails, I'm going to be getting those out even more so. And as well as talking with Rex here, and there was a point in the conversation where he talked about early on doing video chats, glass blowing chats with other artists, and because he was working by himself. And it reminded me of the mastermind groups I've been wanting to put together. So I'm going to be putting out an email here pretty soon, which I started while we were chit-chatting. I just created it real quick, just the form. I haven't done anything else to it. But it's basically going to be just to see who's interested in being part of a mastermind group. And basically a mastermind group is going to be a group of 5 artists. It might be a mixed group of males and females. Might just be strictly males in one group, females in another. Depends on how you guys want to go about doing it. But the idea is to sit and talk and get personal, talk about life, talk about what's been going on in your world and glass, struggles, successes, failures in business. And because the ultimate goal with this show is to help you become a better artist and also an entrepreneur, which is why I'm not going to say I've coined the phrase, but I like to use that artistic entrepreneur concept and philosophy. Because the more successful you are behind the torch, then you can then go out and live the life that you've been wanting to live. You can go see the places you've wanted to see and be able to afford to do that by the hard work you put into your torch. And there's also a weird flux in the community right now in the pipe industry in terms of sales, and those that are super successful or were and struggling right now. There's a lot of weird things going on. We've talked about this in previous episodes, just that strange dichotomy that's going on right now. So as we go on with more episodes, I'm going to be talking about that even more so. I'm going to be have a smoke shop coming on as well, and they're going to be the first smoke shop I've ever brought on the show. I've wanted for a couple of years now. Box fan Willie and I talked about doing a separate show that was dedicated, basically the same format as this one, but it was dedicated to bringing smoke shops on. And this smoke shop will be the first one, and that's going to be more or less the launching pad for me to begin that show. I'm not sure if Box Fan will be involved with, but him and I were chit-chatting the other day about just kind of the industry and where things are, and we talked about that again. So we'll see what happens. So stay tuned for that for sure. But yeah, so other than that, just make sure you guys go check out mountainglass.com, all their sales and awesome stuff they have going on, new colors, new materials, new supplies, new stock, all kind of cool shit going on over there. All of our friends up there in Asheville, North Carolina. And make sure you guys subscribe to the Flow magazine. We'll be having a editorial piece that's being published there soon. I don't know exactly what episode, or I should say issue, it's going to be in. But they have picked up my 5-part series on So You Want to Be a Glassblower, which I covered all kind of things from getting started to marketing and selling your work, why the pros and cons of selling to a distributor are, all kind of good stuff. And I'm really excited. It's the first time I've ever been published in any kind of publication as have an editorial piece per se. So definitely, if you guys have not yet subscribed to the Flow magazine, they have a ton of amazing content in every single magazine issue that they put out. Tons of tutorials, interviews with artists, you name it. It's just amazing stuff. And you can receive a good little bit off their year subscription by using the coupon code WiseGuy at checkout. And if you can get a digital copy or an in-hand paper copy, I love having the actual magazine in hand. It's just definitely something tactile about having a book or a magazine per se. So if you have not yet subscribed to the Flow, go subscribe to the Flow today. I have all the links in the show notes. Got to give my love to them. And one more thing before I let you go, I'm going to be continuing to try to remember, if I can, to talk about the Patreon, because I don't like asking for money, and I'm not asking for money. But in a sense, I am asking for your help, in a sense, to keep this show rolling, because as these episodes get longer, the cost for the show will go up a little bit. This show does cost me roughly about $150 a month or so, something like that, to run. And I have sponsors now that are helping cover that, but every little penny helps, because I definitely want to continue to grow the show, be able to get out and travel and help to cover those expenses. And basically because this is going to then turn around for you for information and for content and all that kind of stuff, just to make the show better. So I'm calling my Patreon supporters the Wise Asses. And if you'd like to be a wise ass, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/WiseGuyRadio. I will have the link in the show notes. And for as little as $1 a month, you can be a member on there and be a wise ass. I'm going to be soon putting up exclusive content for those who are in the group of the Wise Asses. Tutorials, little explanations. I have a video that I am going to be doing that is a 5-minute demonstration on the fast way to make a dragon wing. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm sitting instead of standing, and my lungs are filling up with carbon dioxide, so I got to take a deep breath. But that being said, I have a little video putting together. Again, it's just how to make a dragon wing. It's a 5-minute video, and the only way you'll be able to see that is by being a Patreon member. It's not available yet, but it will be. And those little kind of things I'm going to be doing. I have a YouTube channel that you can't find because it's a hidden secret YouTube channel that I have for the online courses. But I will be adding videos to that for you that are going to become wise asses with our Patreon. So definitely stay tuned for more information on that as we come along. But again, just go to you can go to patreon.com/WiseGuyRadio. I'll have the link in the show notes for you. And I'm going to be promoting it more. Again, I don't like asking for handouts or for money, that kind of stuff, but I do want to help the show do more stuff and travel and cover expenses, and that is one way to do it. So I'm going to let you go before I keep rambling. I hope you really enjoy this episode. This was a lot of fun. Rex is super highly intelligent dude, and he's a family man. I'll be bringing his wife on the show pretty soon, and the both of them together to talk about the dynamics of a dual glass-blowing couple, which I'm excited about. And other than that, hope you guys enjoy. Stay hydrated out there. It's getting to be summertime, and pay attention to that. It's just definitely important. If you're sweating and you're not peeing like you normally pee, then that means you're not drinking enough fluids. So make sure you have your water. Go buy a nice big cup that you can use, a Yeti or whatever the fuck you got. But instead of using plastic, and just keep that thing filled up, working segments, working hours, breaks in between 3-hour long shifts so you can cool down and relax, and work in the mornings if you need to, or working at night. It makes a big difference. And but do what you got to do to stay hydrated and stay cool out there, because it's going to be getting hot. And until next time, enjoy this episode with Rex Estrada from Blissful Glass. You can find him out there on Instagram at Blissful Glass. All the links in the show notes. Everything we talked about is in the show notes as well. And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Y'all take care of yourselves. Love you so much. Have fun. Happy melting. Peace. What's going on, Rex? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on. I feel very privileged to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. I'm stoked to have you on. And a little disclaimer, as we talked pre-show, I had posted on Instagram mentioning that our first episode coming out would be on the 21st, and I'm a whole week off, so I apologize to everybody that was looking for a show to come out, because it did not, and I was a big fat fucking liar. So, yeah, man, this month of May is just flying by, dude. So I just, glad we were able to work this out, and we'll be on track now. So no more bullshit in the audience.
Well, I'm glad that I'm able to come on today. It came up on me pretty quick. My buddy actually reminded me. I was working in the shop, and he messaged me, and he was like, "You ready for tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh man, it's tomorrow." So yeah. I just kind of threw everything together. I had to sign on for Skype, actually make a new Skype name because I lost my old password. But yeah, everything got taken care of. We had a little bit of technical issues at first, but I think it's good to go now.
Yeah, man. I think it's the life of the glass blower, dude. You got to improvise and just keep the fucking ball rolling,
For sure. Definitely can understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get all off the rails here, if you want to get us started and tell us about your superhero origin story and how you were introduced into the flame.
My superhero origin story. Well, I suppose my passion started whenever I was really young, probably about 9 or 10 years old. I was watching PBS online, or in my grandmother's house in the living room, and I saw that a soft glass program came on. So I just thought to myself, man, that's what I want to do when I get older, because they always ask you, what do you want to do when you get older, or when you grow up? And I was like, that's it right there. So about 14 years old or so, I started looking into it, and I started saving my birthday money and every little bit of money, scraps that I could get. And I found a website called Sundance Art Glass that sold lamp working supplies. Well, first off, I had looked online to try to see if I could do soft glass, but it was so expensive, there's no way I could get into it with some birthday money. But
yeah, that's a big fat piggy bank right there.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have some rich parents or something. But it was just me and my little birthday money, so I decided I was going to go ahead and buy my first little starter kit of lamp working. It cost me $400-something. I got that in, and my grandpa, he just so happened to be a welder, so I had oxygen and propane. So went ahead and just practiced whenever I could, and it really wasn't anything that I was serious about at all. Just something that I wanted to do as a hobby.
Huh, interesting.
But like throughout the years, I just kept coming back to it because I worked at different jobs and I was never happy. I do warehouse work, and I mean, whether I was secluded by myself or if I was working with other people, I just felt like I wanted more. I wanted to do more. There's something about glass blowing that gives you some satisfaction. But later on in life, I met Elena, and that's when I really started getting serious because she was basically one of my official customers. Like I'd never really sold anything. I'd given stuff away and like never really sold anything. I never really felt like I was good enough. But when I met her, she needed a piece for her water pipe, a little replacement piece. I thought to myself, I can do that. So she came over to the house and like looked at what I was doing. Then I asked her if she wanted to get on the torch, and she was like, yeah, let me try that. So I taught her how to make a marble, and she was in love after that. But she has been my main inspiration, really encouraging me to better myself, to keep going, to keep at it. And I mean, look where I am today. I mean, that's just from whenever I met her. That was probably like almost 10 years now.
Amazing.
Right. I mean, it was a long journey, but every minute of it was worth it, totally worth it. All the struggles and everything.
Hell yeah. So to back to that PBS special, was it the Dale Chihuly Rivers of Glass one that he did?
No, I don't even know if it was Dale Chihuly at all. It was just a random guy on the soft glass forge. He was just pulling out globs of glass and rolling out bases.
Interesting.
He was puffing a little bubble in there, picking up some glass on the table, and just making little things. And I just thought that was amazing. I thought, wow, that's something that I want to do right there.
Yeah, that's funny because I know a lot of times at work I hear people always, they kind of, after I talk to them, I hear them kind of conversating as they're walking away, and a lot of people are like, it's just interesting the thought of, I'm going to be a glass blower when I grow up, kind of thing like you're saying, like I wanted to be a fighter pilot, I never thought I'd be a glass blower. So it's cool, growing up and seeing these little inspiration things that inspire us to change and pivot in our life. And it seems like, once you get that bug, dude, it doesn't ever go away.
Right? That's exactly what happened. I mean, before that, I wanted to be an astronaut. And
Hell yeah.
I thought about that for a long time, and I always wanted to make good grades in school, which I always did. I graduated with awesome grades. But still, though, and there's something about glass blowing I just couldn't get away from. It just drew me back. Every time I tried to go do something else to maybe make money, or I doubted myself thinking that I couldn't make a living off of doing this, I mean, it's just too fulfilling. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
It's fascinating. Have you always been artistic as a child?
Oh, yeah. I would draw different drawings. I mean, one of the first little awards that I drew was the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, or I won, sorry, and it was like a little blue ribbon over there. But I basically just drew a little horse figure. I saw a little horse picture that they had in a magazine, and it was probably like 1/4 of the size. And I used just my sketching skills to blow it up on the page and scale it to size. Apparently, it looked good. It won a prize. But yeah, I suppose I've always been artistic.
Hell yeah! How old were you?
Oh, like 13, 14.
Nice. Heck yeah.
It's all around there. Oh,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, it's nice when you're young like that to get an award for art like that, because I think the kids these days that get those kind of the push for the art teachers, the ones that end up becoming some kind of artist of some sort.
Well, that's what it was. I feel like it was a lot of that too, because even whenever I was in elementary school, normally whenever you go to 6th grade, they put you over in middle school, but they had me right next to I think it was like an advanced class or something, but they were teaching me algebra, and I had a really good art teacher, and we went to art museum, and I mean, we had some really good education there. But I feel like that was a big influence for all this too, being able to have that in my life, that experience of being able to see true art and really having a good appreciation for it. That helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely makes a big difference. Have you found that you've been drawn to like science and that kind of stuff too?
Like Science?
Yeah, just like
You mean,
science in general. Because I mean, if you want to be an astronaut, there's a lot of fucking science involved.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the main things that I keep in my books is different. Like, I take notes on different lectures that I listen to, because whenever I'll work, I'll throw on a YouTube video, and I normally like to learn something. So I'm not just listening to music, but if anybody else was there, I normally put music on because I know it's just boring listening to a lecture, but I love it. That's what I do. But I mean, like the latest one that I listened to was about Dr. Gerald Pollack. He was talking about the fourth phase of water, and that was really interesting because that explains a lot. As far as like when ice cubes form, the reason that ice forms from the sides going inwards is because on a hydrophilic surface, there is a crystalline structure of water that forms, and that forms the base of the ice forming. But that also goes into all kinds of different aspects of crystalline water and water structurization and different kind of sciences that can branch off from that. Like I made a water structurizer. I'm pretty sure I sent you a picture of that. And what that does is that takes, basically what I have is well water. And sometimes you'll get coliform bacteria that will form in the well water, and that makes like a rotten egg smell. Well, with this device, what this does is it coalesces the bubbles, eliminating all the micro bubbles, and it makes an environment where these bacteria cannot live. So you no longer have to treat like you normally would. Sorry, I'm outside walking right now. I'm trying to get better reception. You can still hear me, right?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I think this is a good spot. I'm going to go ahead and rest right here.
Cool.
So, yeah, the different sciences that I look into are sometimes fringe sciences, but I love them. It's just little pieces like that lead to other discoveries, and that's what I really like.
Hell yeah, yeah, dude. And I always compare glass and water as like they're so similar in the way they work property wise. It's just being such some kind of obscure material that science is still learning, as long as it's been on this earth for. I mean, water especially, but even glass and stuff. It's so fascinating the kind of correlations you have between the two. On a molecular level, even it comes down to it and how they react and expand and contract. And so I'm definitely
right.
I definitely have a huge appreciation for that.
And the different properties as well. One of the properties that I'm interested in is glass is a semiconductor, but it's a non-conductive material. It's only semiconductor whenever you heat it. It would be really cool if a manufacturer of Boro came out with a conductive glass, something that was maybe high in carbon, which I don't know how exactly it would work, because glass being a non-conductive material, that would definitely be a difficult test. I would assume, because I don't really know if there's any conductive glass out there. I would assume there isn't. But stuff like that, even if you slightly made it conductive to where the electricity that was provided through there was less than the amount that you would normally need, you can make glass not transducers, but I can't remember the word. It starts with a T. Anyways, it takes less voltage for these devices to work.
Like a transistor?
And you could make a transistor, and you could make it to where it was smaller and made out of glass and higher temperature and all of that.
Yeah. Because I know, like, when I was talking with Mike Susan, had him on the show, we were talking about that exactly, how glass doesn't conduct heat, but being the fiber optic properties of it, it causes the ends of the rods to get super hot and shit like that, because of how intense the light coming through that is, like a flashlight.
Yeah, light.
But then the electricity doesn't conduct it through it either until glass is over 1,000 degrees, and it's like you look at like carbon, for instance, when you do like a carbon on your glass, and then you can do a heat test if your kiln parameter isn't working by just covering your rod in carbon and throw it in your kiln, and then once at 1,000 degrees, that carbon goes away. So it's so weird how that kind of shit works, but it's that certain temperature that the glass has to be at for it to actually react a certain way. Otherwise it's just a piece of glass.
Yeah, that is true, but there is all kinds of stories out there if you do really research into the glass lore. Like I remember hearing about a story that was a long time ago. I want to say it was in the Roman times, but I'm not 100% sure. I think it was like Greek or something. But an inventor had brought a bowl to the emperor or the king, and told him that he invented this new type of glass and that he was able to throw it on the ground and then just hammer it back in place.
Wow.
And as a demonstration, he just like threw it on the ground. I mean, it could have been plastic or anything. You know, this is back in the day before, you know, any of that stuff was around, I assume.
Yeah.
And, yeah, one of the story of that is he just went ahead and like did a demonstration, hammered it out. The emperor asked him if there was anybody else that knew this, and he told him that he was the only one. So he killed him and took all his research. That's never been found again.
Oh my God.
So you never know what's been invented.
Yeah, right.
That could have benefited humanity, but it's just disappeared just because it might have devalued something. You never know.
Yeah. Moral of the story is you're not the only one that knows the information.
Yeah.
Fuck. But you hear that shit all the time, man, like with the people that have invented like cars that can run on water or electricity and stuff, and then these major corporations, you know, buy their patent or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll do this, this, and this, and all these promises, and then next thing you know, the thing's been killed, or the person's been killed, you know.
And then I figure, you know, whenever we watch the Degenerate Art movie, one of the little gems in there is Bob Snodgrass saying that he's not going to keep his human, and he's just going to give it to the world. That's the way a lot of people need to look at all of this stuff.
Yep.
Is you just need to give it to the world, because what are you going to do? You're going to benefit from it, and you're going to become this wealthy individual that has all this money, but, I mean, you're taking from the rest of them?
Yeah.
Or are you going to give this freely, and then still, I'm assuming, even in my business model, if I were to make something and, like, freely give it out, I would still provide it at a cost, and that would be for the people that can't build it themselves.
Yeah.
And I'd still get money, but people could still build it. And then it would make the technology wider spread to where more people knew about it, and then they would want it more because they knew about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, that's the beauty with open source stuff, you know. That's why I was so happy to see Tesla when they did the, you know, the company-wise, when they just opened their books to everybody, so everybody can help expand this technology, you know. Even, you know, with YouTube and everything else going on, sure, you know, whether it's glass blowing or making semiconductors at your house or trying to build black holes in your fucking garage, you know, whatever, the information's out there. It may not be the right information, but the information's out there to spark the interest, to keep these things rolling, you know. It's pretty neat.
I think one of the most important things that I've come across lately is the monatomic element. I feel like that has a lot of research potential. Just throwing that out there in case any random person picks up on that.
Yeah, what was it again? You said monatomic elements? Or
Yes, monatomic elements. I have a feeling like the special properties of those are going to be very useful in the future.
I'm writing that down so I can look it up. Interesting. Hell yeah, dude. Well, we went completely off the rails there, but whatever. That's how we roll on the show. So, yeah, man. So back to your humble beginnings when you were doing the glass. So you know, early on, what were you making at the age of 14? Obviously, you weren't making pipes and shit, but you know, what were you doing?
Oh man.
Or were you?
My very first thing that I did is I wanted to make like a little dog sculpture. So I decided I was going to take a chunk of clear tubing and try to mold it. But I still have that somewhere. I think my grandmother has it. But it kind of looked more like a dog turd than a dog sculpture.
Hey, that's how we start.
Yeah, she loves that thing.
Hell yeah, man. Amazing. It's probably going to be very valuable one day, your dog turd that you made.
Oh, yeah, my dog turd. She loves that thing. That, and I made like a snail. That was a total accident, but it looked like a snail.
Hell yeah. Yeah, dude, I've made my fair share of snails before, just trying to see if I can coil up a piece of glass, just naturally let it roll up on itself, you know, to make like a round flat shape, and it looks like a snail shell. I'm like, oh, I could just rip a little bit of glass off here and put a tail on the back of it, and I got a fucking snail. Look at that.
Yep, and I mean, that's actually, I don't know, spirals in general is what I've been drawn to from the very beginning. So I suppose that's where that even came from. I was trying to do a spiral, if I remember correctly.
Huh, fascinating.
That's really kind of the influence of my glass. Even before I could do a spiral, I was still trying to do something that resembled a spiral, whether it be like a bridge spiral, because I didn't know what I was doing, whether like whenever you try to melt your rod for the first time and get a nice even taper bend, it just goes all wonky and starts flopping, and you don't know when to pull it out of the flame and stop. Yeah, I still got one of those too. Those are one of my little treasures. keep safe.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's good for people to keep their early stuff. Like my sister has a couple of my first pipes I ever made. It's just so funny seeing those things compared to nowadays. It's good stuff.
Oh man,
Little artifacts.
I do have friends that still have them, and will bring them out every once in a while just to remind me of how long they've known me. They're like, "Do you remember when I got this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember." It just looks like a little garbled piece of glass.
Right.
It's not even really resembling anything of what I could do today.
That's so funny.
But yeah.
So, at what point in your career did you start the pipes?
Ooh, okay. So I'm gonna say somewhere after like 16 or 17, something like that. Because I had went to a couple different shops because a friend of mine, they were inviting me to go head shopping with them, and I was, underage guy, so I didn't really want to ask too many questions, and I was in with the guardian or whatever, so I could go up in there, and I started looking at their glass, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. And so, once again, the first thing that I did is I went home, and I started researching, and I was like, wow, there's a whole world that I had no idea about. Because whenever I first started, whenever I was 14, it was out of pure passion. I didn't know that there was famous glass artists out there. So I started doing my research online, and I found this website called glasspipes.org.
Mm-hmm.
And I started just like scouring all the pages that I could, just picking up all the different techniques. And I was like, wow, there's just a whole world that I had no idea about. So I basically was humbled a little bit, and I was like, wow, there's no way that I am even as good as I thought I was. Because, whenever you first start, you're like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm starting to get so good. And, like, you look at the other stuff, and you're like, wow, how did they do that?
Yeah. Yeah, you come across like an old Jason Lee or Scott Deppie piece or something like that. It's like, all right, I'm going to put my torch in the garage and sell this thing.
Well, I had a general idea. I just didn't have the skills. And also, too, I've never been taught. So whenever I first started, all of my experience was just from trial and error. So whenever I got to the point where I went into the shop and I was actually able to look at the stuff in person, I understood how it was made because I had wasted enough material to understand the process to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like I could execute it at that particular time. So, like, once I started really scouring the internet and found that website, glasspipes.org, I really put some practice in, and I practiced different things. But one of the things that was the main thing is I didn't want to look like anybody else. I didn't want to bite somebody's style, basically. So, obviously, you get your basic spoon pipe, and everybody makes the same type of spoon pipe. Well, not the same, but, the general shape.
Yeah.
I just thought, man, I want something that's going to set me apart. And, it just came to me one day, like spirals, of course. That was what you started doing in the beginning, do some spirals. So I started doing that, and, of course, they were horrible. But I kept practicing, and now that's, like, the main thing that I put in everything. Just because, I don't know, it feels like it's just like a signature thing by now for me, which I figure it is.
And when you say a spiral, do you mean like the pattern, like say like the neck of a spoon, like it's got a spiral to it, or like an actual like drawn on spiral pattern in the glass?
No, an actual scrollwork spiral. Like, I'll pull a taper. Well, basically I'll take a blank and I'll frit it up, and then when I'm pulling it down, I want to start at like maybe a 2 millimeter and work all the way up to maybe I'm going to say 12 to 16 millimeter in diameter, but the whole time it has a nice taper gradient all the way from one side to another. And then I go from that pointy end and I start curling it little by little all the way till I get to the end. And by the time it's done, it just looks, I don't know, in my opinion, it looks good. I like it.
Heck yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm actually looking at your pictures now just to wrap my brain around it again. Yeah, I definitely, I think it's interesting when you get to a point in your career where you're like, you want to stand out, you want to have your own voice and stuff, and it's, you obviously found it in a sense, which I dig. And for some of us, it takes forever. Sometimes some people don't get it, and sometimes you get it right away. So it's,
You are absolutely correct about that. And that's one of the things that kept me up at night, because one of the things that I used to do before I started doing any of my spiral production stuff is I loved scientific work. And I would, okay, I guess my first real draw to it is whenever I made my first sale, I went into the head shop and I'd already been looking at scientific stuff. So what I had in the case kind of looked scientific, but it was nowhere near as good because my skill level wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first pieces I saw was a Micah Evans piece. And I studied that thing from top to bottom. I even asked him if I could pull it out of the case and hold it. And man, I mean, that thing just blew me away by how amazingly beautiful it was. Just the architecture put into there, the proportions and the ratios. And he even put water in it for me, and it just sounded so beautiful. Like whenever the water would go through it, it almost sounded like a piece of a tin that had been stretched. And you were flicking it, the way that the bubbles went through.
Interesting.
Awesome. But after that, I mean, I practiced and practiced and practiced, and still to this day, I look up to Micah Evans. He's probably like my personal favorite artist, just because I mean, I don't think his art will ever go out of style, and that's kind of what I strive for. It's something like Egyptian work.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to look at their statues or anything that they made, it's classic. It'll never go out of style.
Yeah, it's definitely
beautiful.
Timeless in a sense.
Yeah, it was beautiful then, and it'll always be beautiful. And that's kind of what I strive for. I want something that, I mean, you're going to look at it 100 years from now and be like, damn, that's still pretty. And that's whenever I'm proud of my pieces.
Yeah, man, that's a good feeling to have, dude. That's too cool. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by your works. I apologize here.
No, it's okay. That's okay. I mean, whenever I first started, it was weird. I was going to kind of mention this earlier, but I got sidetracked. I was like about 13, 14 years old, and I told you I bought my setup, but the whole way that it happened was weird. Like I woke up at 3 in the morning in a cold sweat, and just everything from like start to finish, all my steps that I needed to do were in my head. And I got up and I wrote it down, and I followed those steps. And that was like the first time that I started writing my book. So since then, I've got like 5 books that I've written, and I'm eventually going to coalesce them into one book and publish it as a master copy. But I mean, it kind of all flows into itself. I was talking about water earlier, and it like goes into crystals. It goes into the body. Like just for instance, the body itself, the blood cells are negative, and when you breathe and when you use the bathroom or anything like that, sweat, you're releasing protons. So whenever people talk about grounding, that the earth is negative, and you're actually pulling in negative charge to benefit your body. So you're actually making a charge flow. So like people that have problems with where their cells are sticky and they stick to themselves, like drinking things like structurized water that has their molecules aligned, which allows more conductivity in the water, will allow those people that are suffering that to alleviate that, along with like the knowledge of being able to ground yourself and that your body eliminates positive and you want to keep the negative charge. Like all of that is going to be in the book. And I mean, to somebody that's researching something, that may be the key piece that they need. You never know.
Yeah, man, that's fascinating stuff. It's interesting too with the whole water thing. 'Cause like right now we have my roommate's been recently diagnosed with MS, and so she's been dealing with having walking issues and muscle strength and stuff. And they recommended her to look at the same kind of thing, like ionized charged water and stuff. And there's this brand we've been using that she's been drinking, and it's not that it's a miracle thing, but she definitely has noticed a difference in the, like you're saying, like a kind of a weird charge balance.
Yeah, the science behind it is as the water spins, just like in nature, if you were to see a river that kind of bends to the left and right, and it never flows in a straight line. And throughout those bends, you'll see little whirlpools that are swirling the water. Well, just like when you rub a needle on a magnet and align the molecules, the same process happens with water when you spin it in a tornado vortex. It aligns the molecules, allowing the molecules to connect to where it increases the charge flow. So people that have nervous system issues, where their electrical conductivity in their body is having malfunctions, it will help because it increases the electrical conductivity in the body.
This is probably the most interesting interview I've done. Just a side note, dude. Just thinking here, I'm like, this is fucking cool, man, because this is the kind of shit that I like talking about outside the glass world. Like, don't get me wrong, I love talking about glass, but like, I like having just kind of talks, you know.
all of it interconnects. I mean, even
Yeah.
whenever I was talking about how, like, the conductive glass, that could be applied to the fuel cell world.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody could become a millionaire just by creating something that, is a cheaper material that you could mass produce, just like you would cell phone screens or something.
Right. Yeah, dude, and that's one of my favorite things about glass is just how much there is involved, not only in the process of using the stuff, but just in the material itself that correlates to almost everything in the spectrum of life, from our personal behavior to the way the fucking world turns, in a sense. It's just, it's so fascinating to me. I'll hear some people talk about something, and I'm like, damn, that's some shit I do in glass.
Well, it's weird how everything interconnects. I feel like there is a sense of predestination, like things do happen for a reason. Mm-hmm. And yes, you do create your own reality, like you are able to change any predestined thing, I suppose. But in the sense that everything happening for a reason, like things are put in your life so that later you can understand things. Like I wouldn't be able to fully grasp all the concept that I have now if I didn't go through what I went through. All the unsure, like wanting to maybe do something else and then trying to like research for a week and just get my mind off of it. Like all of that happened for a reason. I needed that research so I can understand what I know today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, dude, I completely agree. And it's interesting that you're talking about the whole destiny kind of thing, because I had the similar like philosophical thoughts myself. And there's this podcast I listen to called Science Versus, and they usually have they have a standard formula to their show. And just recently, this newest episode they came out with was completely off a different type of variation of how they do the show. And basically, the story that they talked about was this guy. It was like the worst kind of science experiment ever done in the world that led to something that was catastrophic. So basically, the story was that this 9-year-old girl, I can't think of what her name was, but her mother basically had a bunch of different boyfriends, random whatever, through her life growing up until she was about 9 years old, and her mother met this guy that said, "I'll marry you, but you can't have any kids." So she put her daughter up for adoption and dropped her off at this school for people that were mentally handicapped or different types of mental levels. And this girl was not anywhere like that. She was a normal human being, basically, like in terms of intelligence levels. And at some point, the girl was in her, I guess, 10, 11 years old. This psychologist came to this school or whatever, this dormitory place. And because of the amount of various types of mental types of levels of people that were there, he thought it was a great place for him to study his research on childhood development and behavior and mental side of things. And he was the guy that developed the word moron, and he had these different level classes from like you're an idiot to a moron, and a moron was considered somebody who was slightly intelligent that can live through life on a normal daily basis, but wasn't like highly effective in a sense. And his whole point was that I guess he did like this background research on this young girl on her family tree, and through his quote unquote research, he found that there was a branch in her family where her mother, because she had been with other different men, had bared another child, I guess, through another man, basically. So the other child that was born, that whole lineage of that family went on to be highly intelligent and effective. They were actually, most of them were highly successful people. And the people that were in the lineage of the girl who was in this home, the 9-year-old girl, all these people, if they go back in the history of her family, including the father, that was the guy that was her father in a sense, they were all like bank robbers and degenerates in a sense. And the guy that was, had the good child, quote unquote, his whole lineage back hundreds of years were all these successful people. So this guy was like, hey, see, genes really do determine who we are, and we need to get rid of the bad gene pool of the quote unquote morons. And so he wrote this whole book to prove his theory, which then led to this whole big thing in our society back in like the early 1900s, where Helen Keller and all these people that were known and had some kind of say in the world were in agreement to get states and our country and as well to pass laws to sterilize people who were considered quote unquote morons. And so back then, they were burning people at the stake, and there was all this other crazy shit that was going on, right? Like just completely crazy shit. And society thought it was a good idea. Well, fast forward to 1900s and Germany and World War II going, and this guy named Adolf Hitler gets a copy of this book, which then led to his, as a young man, having this idea of having one pure, true race. right? So then Adolf Hitler came to power, hundreds of millions of innocent people were killed, etc. And this guy recently, in the last 5 years, came across this book and understood the history of what it had led to, and was basically saying how this book that he read, it felt too clean. Like the way the story went, it just seemed like it was something wasn't quite right. Well, come to find out, this girl who was considered to be a moron was actually super intelligent. She grew up to be successful, even though she never left this housing place that she was in. She ended up going and teaching and all kind of crazy stuff. And basically, the guy's entire book, all this stuff that he wrote in this book, was all bullshit. And so basically, this guy wrote a fake book about science and childhood psychology that led to the death of hundreds of fucking millions of people. And if this guy never wrote this fairy tale fucking bullshit psychology book, who knows what would have happened, through World War II. It's really crazy.
Well, there's still a lot of people that believe that same way, and that's why you have people that have racism. And I mean, racism existed before that, but it was just a justification for that. And
exactly.
Use it now. But man, it made me think of a couple of different stories, like Beethoven, for instance. If that would have gone through, he would have never existed, because you see all the defects that he had when he was born, and all of his other siblings and whatnot. And if that would have even happened, we would have never had Beethoven's music.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I kept listening to it. I'm just like, okay, where's the punchline here? And then it's fascinating how just one little thing can lead to, that whole butterfly effect. It's so fascinating. Which to me, I like that kind of historical type of stuff. It just sucks when it happens to be something that was, completely devastating to the human race.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. And I as well. I enjoy listening to different histories and different mythologies. Like at first, whenever I first looked into it, of course, you look into the Greek and the Egyptian mythologies and like start learning about all their different pantheons of gods and what they did and whatnot. And I mean, if you really want to be unbiased, you look into the different, what people say that are religious and whatnot. And you kind of see how everything ties in.
Yeah.
Even things in like the political field, all of that is influenced by the religious aspect of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of opens your eyes to really what's going on around you. But I doubt that somebody that works a 9-to-5 job would ever have the time to really put forth the effort to learn any of this. So I feel very blessed to be able to do what I do, in the sense that I can take time to learn. And I mean, it makes me feel like I am able to make more of a difference, because not only am I doing my research, I am trying to better mankind. I'm not just going to let this research stagnate. I want to use the research. Like I had mentioned with fuel cells earlier, that's one of the things that I look into. And I mean, when the glass torches were coming out, I remember that was a big fad. I had tried to do a hydrogen torch, and I posted a video online. And my problem is the power source. And whenever I was looking into it many years ago, I do not know what I knew today. And the power source was my problem. So I put it online, and I showed people you can produce hydrogen and oxygen from water, and you can use this to heat your nail or whatever. And I was going to market it as a novelty thing, but the big problem with that is you'd have to have a big bulky battery or be plugged directly into the wall wherever you go, and that just doesn't seem feasible. I don't want somebody to, be electrocuted on something that I made.
Right. Yeah, sounds a little bit, some libel issues there for sure. But still, dude, the fact that you're thinking that way, I think is fucking amazing.
Well, I mean, it all starts somewhere. There's people doing research in their basement. I mean, if you look at Microsoft or, Windows and all that stuff, it's just people working in their basement, tinkering away. And I feel like that's what a lot of us glass blowers are doing. I mean, whether we're, working on glass and scraping along, we always have that in the back of our mind, trying to make money. So just that draw makes it to where you want to better yourself. And sometimes it betters the people around you, depending on what you create, unless it's just a selfish thing, like if you're just taking advantage of people.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the part of what, like you're saying, having the options and the ability that those that are full-time glass artists to be able to continuously educate yourself and not just, have the fucking bass speakers blasting in your studio all the time, and actually have some kind of sensibility to listen to educational aspects or topics that you're excited about, and things that you may not even be excited about that you one day might be because you're introduced to it, through whatever.
Yes. And it may have, something that you may have no idea have something to do with another subject that you're researching, but you're listening to it because it may sound interesting, but you get that one little jewel that you may have needed. And it's the same way like what I was explaining. Maybe something that I said may have been something that somebody needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I see it. That goes along with everything happens for a reason. You're always put in situations, so you can have action, because without action, nothing will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people like that when they ask me how I learned how to do this, and I'm like, I just learned it by doing. And that's how everything in life is. You just got to take fucking action and do it. So many of us sit around just talk, and you got to take action.
Well, that's a lot of the new age thinking too. Like they think you can just think about something that is going to manifest, but you have to put forth action in order to manifest it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not to get all religious here and shit, but like my mom is always talking about, I'm always, years ago, and not to throw my mom under the bus or anything here, but just as an example, she's like, yeah, I'm just sitting around, I'm praying about this and this and this. And I'm like, well, you can sit around and pray all you fucking want, but if that door opens up for you and you ain't getting out and walking through it, and you ain't going to find what you're looking for, you got to get up and walk through those doors.
Even in the religious books, they tell you that you're supposed to put forth action, and prayer alone is not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You're supposed to be able to, be able to have your faith and pray towards the Creator, but know that the Creator is going to reward you for doing what you need to do and what He's put forth in front of you, not just, let it slide thinking that everything's going to be okay. Like if somebody is, I say, abusing somebody in front of you, and you were put there to say something and you don't,
Yeah.
Like maybe that would have affected their life much better if you did. And like later on down the line, help them. And I see that in different aspects too. Like I feel like I have a muse that sometimes comes around and will be like, hey, don't forget your keys when you're leaving out the house, and be like, okay, yeah, keys, don't forget to lock the house, or it's just little thoughts in the back of your mind. And a lot of that happens whenever I'm getting my ideas too. It's the same kind of action. Like I'll be thinking about stuff and off in daydream land, and boom, here's an idea. And I've known from experience that if I don't write it down then, it's not like it's going to stay in my head.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a little fleeting thing. If I don't write it down, I'm going to be like, what was I thinking about?
I know, right? I hate that shit.
That's why I carry my book in my pocket, because I got all them ideas in there.
Yeah, man, it's smart. And I hope those listening to this are taking that into consideration, because it's definitely important to have. Because there's so many times, bro, where I'm like falling asleep and I'll have this long, drawn-out conversation about something in my head, some idea, and it's like you're saying, you open your eyes and all of a sudden it's gone. It's like completely gone.
And I mean, I don't even know if I would have been where I am today if I didn't follow that. Remember I was telling you when I was like 14 years old, I had that very vivid dream of exactly what to do, and I wrote it down step for step, and I literally followed that step for step. I bought my equipment exactly the way that I had it on the list, and I mean, it worked out perfect. So I mean, you can call that inspired or whatever, but I feel like either somebody, my subconscious or my part of creation, whatever I am, that's something's looking out, whatever.
Yeah, man, look where you are now. It's took that action at a young age, and which is not that common these days for the youngins these days to take action, at least on their own.
That may be one of the pieces that people need to get out of this.
Yep.
Is maybe take action whenever you get that inkling, because it may not last there. Because a lot of the things they talk about opportunity only knocking once and it won't knock twice. And a lot of the times the opportunity, whenever you get that inkling, if you don't do it right then, it's going to be too late by the time you want to get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because how many times have you thought about some kind of idea in glass, and the next thing you know, you're on social media and you see somebody did it?
Exactly. Oh my God, that's the biggest freaking example right there. I don't know how many times I've talked about that. Something that I've come up with, or me and my buddies come up with, and then a week later, 2 days later, it's right there. Somebody's new idea that they just came out with.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny, dude.
And that's the 100th monkey. I feel like that's one of the proofs that we are all connected.
Yeah, I agree. Well, like when I had Hugh Hefner on, we were talking about the thermal buckets that were coming out. And he said, like in his like 10-mile radius, there was 3 different studios that were all developing a different variation of the thermal bucket. And none of them talked to each other about it. Nobody knew what the other one was doing, but eventually they all realized through social media that they were all developing their own variation of this thermal, bucket type thing. And it was something that my buddy Richard, my student of mine, where him and I had talked about before we saw these posts on Instagram, the same kind of idea of like, I wonder if we put a little bit of yellow cadmium frit in the bottom of a bucket and sealed it in there somehow, if you can heat up with a torch and time it to see what, when it goes from orange back to yellow, what temperature that is. And next thing you know, there's fucking 3 different people out there doing the same thing, and we're across a damn country, It's just, it's
the
fascinating.
same way with whenever I was doing that hydrogen torch. Of all people that hit me up whenever I was doing it, I posted that video. It was Quave.
Oh, interesting.
He hit me up, and I tried to explain how to do it, and then I really feel bad about it now because I didn't have that same mentality that I wanted it to get out. But also, too, I was thinking at the same time, like, this is the new thing for me. I kind of wanted to be the guy to be known for it, but it really wasn't ready. And, like, me releasing it out there, just gave everybody that idea. So, still, even to this day, it's really not ready because I don't have the technology that I need to be able to incorporate it. I understand it much, much more in depth, and I could probably produce what I want now, but I don't have the money or the access to the technology that I need because I don't even know a company that would produce the type of equipment that I would need. I would have to get something maybe custom built.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, he hit me up and he wanted to learn how to do it because apparently, I don't know, that was around the glass torch time, and I figured like we were all thinking about the same thing. Like he saw that and was like, oh, that's awesome. That's probably the same thing he was thinking about and wanted to know more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I remember seeing like when Steve Bates first did the glass torches, that were actually mounted to the pieces, it was like, damn, that's a fucking awesome idea. It looks kind of dangerous, potentially, but man, that's a badass idea. You don't see it that much anymore, like with the old Hitman rigs that were out back in the day.
Yeah, I think it's because of the liability thing.
Yeah.
It got to a point where people were realizing that they were dangerous, and that's another reason why I didn't continue with mine, because I was doing a pressurized chamber where I was filling like on my prototype it was a little balloon, but after that it was an actual spring mechanism that would pressurize. But that balloon would fill up, and that would be residual gas that could explode at any time, and it's just stored right there. So
interesting.
I kind of paused that whole aspect right there, and really what I ideally wanted to do is just do an on-demand type of thing. So whenever you turn it on, it makes the gas right there that you need, and you don't have anything stored, and that would be wonderful.
Huh. Yeah, dude, we got to work those kinks out somehow. You got to blow yourself up every once in a while to figure out why you blew yourself up.
Well, after as many prototypes as I have now, I think I got it. And really, it's just getting the professional equipment made correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to give a clue to anybody, research what a frequency is and what Tesla says. What is a frequency? Just ask yourself that, and it will open up so many doors. And just knowing how he built his Tesla coil in the very first little prototype that he made, understanding how to create pulsed current and understanding that it's oscillations per second and understanding what nature's frequency is, then it's going to unlock a lot of stuff, because that's basically what he was into. He was tapping into the frequency of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
being
exactly.
able to broadcast internet or energy over long distances. And I feel like that's the same thing that they were doing over in Egypt with like the Lighthouse of Alexandria and all of their ancient technology and stuff like freaking John Hutchinson and his Hutchinson effect, how he's able to levitate cannonballs. All of that is frequency modulation. So if you really want to do some cool stuff and really get into some weird science, I would say learn what a frequency is. If you absolutely know nothing, ask yourself, what is a frequency?
Yeah. It's a good idea. Stuff I'm fascinated in, because eventually that's going to lead into teleportation and all kind of crazy shit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. How am I doing on time?
Oh, dude, we can go 3 hours. I don't give a shit.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've been an hour so far. So
Sure. Cool. I wasn't sure if you were enjoying the company or not.
Oh, dude, I'm having a blast, bro. So this, yeah, like I said, this is I enjoy these kind of conversations. And that being said, have you seen the new Tesla series that's out, like the Discovering Tesla or some shit, where they're trying to find like I guess he had like 16 cases or trunks that had all of his research and stuff in it, and it all disappeared.
Yes, I have seen those.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I have a feeling like a couple families still have them somewhere just hidden. And I mean, they know about it. Obviously, they're just not telling anybody.
Yeah, it seems like that kind of some of that stuff is in the wrong hands could be devastating.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I was just about to get to. That's the whole main reason he did that in the first place, to separate all his information out. And one of the things that he did was give portions of one of his main inventions to each country, and that way nobody had all of the invention. That way nobody could just like be the dominant force around. Because from what I understand, this is a device that, once projected, something like HARP would be able to bounce off our ionosphere and create lightning bolts that would, devastate an entire area. Just like crazy, like a Bhagavad Gita type of description of how things would be devastated, like over in the Indian text.
Mm-hmm.
How they talk about their vimanas throwing down crazy lightning bolts. I assume it would be something like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Sounds like the Infinity Gauntlet, and everybody has their own stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
good thing nobody has the whole thing.
Yeah, thank God. But
if they do, everybody has it.
Right, exactly. But like the conspiracy theorists, like when Haiti had that terrible earthquake, years ago, and they're like, oh yeah, the government fucking has a Tesla coil, cannon up in one of their satellites, and they tested it on Haiti. It's like, come on, you fucks. Do you think people are gonna do that?
Yeah, I do remember that, and I have heard a couple of different things. Whether it be from Russia or our own government doing testing, I have the basic understanding of what those machines do, because once you research what a frequency is and understand how, things like sound and electricity, they all interconnect through this idea of a frequency,
mm-hmm.
oscillations per second, and then you could understand how, like, even the woodpecker thing that the government was putting out to disrupt our mental rhythm it's like a signal that's like a woodpecker, and it's made to be at a certain rhythm to where it disrupts your thoughts or whatever. Anyways, that same thing, like even when Tesla was doing his earthquake machine, he just had a machine at the top of the building that had like how cell phones have the little vibrating dealie, how it's kind of offset
mm-hmm.
on a motor. Well, he had one of those, but it was big, and it was going at so many oscillations per second. And that thing, once it reached a rhythm, the whole building started shaking with it. And it was like pushing a swing. Whenever you push a swing, you only push it a little bit, but by the time that swing comes back and you add a little bit more momentum, that swing goes higher, and you're still using the same force. Same concept with that earthquake machine, and it's the same concept with the people that are using the frequency generators that are creating earthquake stuff. You just got to match the resonant frequency.
Interesting.
And that'll make stuff happen.
Yeah, it seems like the future of our technology and weapons and stuff will become like sonic cannons and frequency machines that, don't use any kind of bullets or anything. It's just a sound wave that's going to make you explode or crush your innards, your organs internally, or, like with the, with like how the Navy does their sonar tests and shit, and they're finding, beached whales and stuff,
how they found all the little cavitation holes all throughout the animal.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And yeah, that is terrible. And they're doing that too with the LRAD panels. They're being able to blast people with sound cannons. And that stuff is, it will damage your internal organs. It'll make your ears bleed. It'll do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like concussion grenades, but this will be a whole different technological level.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, now there is a positive aspect to all of that. We may be using it for weapons, but just as much as there is bad, there's good to all of that technology.
Mm-hmm.
The technology itself is not bad. If you are into science, I would say research the primer field, because that's one thing that most of the general population has no idea about. And what that is the 3D form of magnetism. So let's say in space, Earth being a sphere, the magnetism that would be given off of it is spherical. So what this research team did is they created a bowl-shaped magnet, and it had the north and the south pole at the top and the bottom. Like the rim of the bowl was the north and the bottom was the south. Now this magnet had special properties. It was able to repel non-magnetic material. So let's say I have a steel ball bearing, and I place it on a table, and I put it in proximity of this magnet. This magnet can actually push this ball bearing away instead of like the normal, how you have any normal magnet, it would just normally stick to the magnetic material.
Mm-hmm.
This would actually repel it. So one of the things that it would do is when you would place several of these spheres in proximity of each other, they would lock in position, and they would create geometric patterns, like, let's say, honeycomb patterns, which is one of the basic patterns of life. And they would not only lock in that pattern, they had a space in between each of the spheres, so they weren't touching each other. They were locked in position with magnetism, and they were actually spaced out perfectly even. Now, you apply that to what goes on in space. You know that our theory currently is that when the planets are rotating around the sun and we're just locked in this orbit, and eventually we can spin out or spin into the sun eventually. Well, if you apply this concept of the primer field, just in this particular example, that's just one of the many, many, many examples it could be applied to. That would allow these planets to lock in position, and you'll never move out of your orbit. That's just one of the things that would alleviate anybody's worry about, like, are our planet's going to be here forever? Are we going to, like, go into the sun or be flung out into space? I mean, if it works through the same principles of that, then we're locked in position, rotating around forever because of the special property of magnetism. And then you think about stuff like force fields, like you were saying earlier. Imagine being able to lock in position charge and condense this charge to where, let's say, the theory of matter is energy being condensed to a solid form. Now, put so much energy, you can condense it to a solid form, but have it projected out around you because you're wearing this device, like a spherical device, and it's projecting a locked field out towards the outside. So now, here's force field technology being feasible.
Yeah. Fascinating. Huh.
That's just one of the many things. But, I mean, I forget where this even got off the subject to.
It is all good, dude.
But I'm kind of enjoying this. This is nice.
Yeah, it's killer. Well, you know, and you're talking about the positive sides of things. Look like MRIs and CAT scans and stuff, like where you know medical technology has gotten to nowadays with using magnets, you know, and that kind of technology. It's pretty neat seeing it. I mean, who thought fucking 50 years ago we could scan a brain and see every single micron layer, you know, as you go across it. It's just super fascinating.
Yep, that's where it was. It's a positive aspect of the technology. So, I mean, stuff like that. So whether you're making weapons for, you know, you can use that same technology to theoretically create a force field to protect you from said weapon. So, I mean, it's all up in the air now, but the science speaks to that being possible.
Hell yeah.
Just, in my personal opinion, researching and looking into it. But that's something that, like flying cars and all the things that, you know, people dream about, that may be possible one day. Mm-hmm. Just little pieces that people are missing. Like, everybody knows about magnetism, but did you know about the 3D magnetism?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I didn't.
Yeah.
It makes sense, though, now that you're talking about it. Makes total sense.
And that was actually developed by the people that work over at the CERN facility. They modeled it after one of their domes that they created. It's a mathematically precise dome, and they made a little 3D model and turned it into a magnet, and then they found it had all these special properties. So it was really interesting. It's called the primer field, if you're interested. Yeah,
I wrote that down for sure. Well, you know, it reminds me of like some of the videos I've seen where they take like a little pile of magnetic dust or whatever, particle-wise, on a plate, and then they run a sound frequency through it, and it creates a shape or a pattern of some sort, like the flower of life, for instance, you know, or something cool. And it's neat to see how frequency affects us. I mean, fuck. I mean, I know myself, I'm super hypersensitive to people's energies. So to me, I'm just hypersensitive to frequencies. You know, like certain rooms you walk into, certain lighting can affect you just based on the frequency of the light bulb, you know, or whatever. Just,
I
you know.
totally understand. And
Yeah,
speaking of frequencies, like one of the main things that I had thought about, like, I mean, if we were to relate it over to glass blowing, I had thought, whenever you heat glass, we were talking about semiconductors earlier, when it gets to a certain point, it starts semiconducting, and it makes it to where it'll conduct electricity. Well, what if we had an apparatus that, I mean, you can put, once glass is heated, you can put it into a microwave, and it'll continue the heating process and melt the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if there was an apparatus that would emit frequencies similar to a microwave, but not really on that range? Because a lot of the frequencies that are out there are not matched up to natural frequencies, so they're very detrimental to us, and that's a lot of the reasons why a lot of the stuff are actually damaging to us, is because they know about the natural frequencies, but we're set off to an unnatural frequency on all of our devices.
Yep.
But besides that, the torch apparatus, once it gets the glass hot, why not have something that could make it to where it could emit frequencies and actually continue the heating process, and that'd make it to where maybe you save gas and you could use a much smaller torch, and there's a lot of potential aspects that you could use for that. I mean, it's just a random thought that I had. How would you apply frequencies to glass blowing?
Yeah, dude, it's fun. It's fun to think about, because I know that I think something I saw where they were using some kind of frequency of some sort to start a fire. I don't know if it was on a piece of paper or what it was. I can't what the fuck it was I saw. But it's something similar to that, where it was, talking about microwave, microwaves just is a frequency that heats shit up.
How cool would it be to have like a little speaker head on your torch, and instead of blowing out a flame, you're just blowing out like this low frequency sound, and your glass is melting like butter.
Yeah.
But like as soon as you, like, I mean, this is all fantasy, but it would be really cool if it really didn't like heat it. It would just, you remember how I was talking about the Hutchinson effect earlier,
mm-hmm.
how he was able to levitate cannonballs? One of the things he was able to do with frequencies is turn metal, like a solid stainless steel bar, to rubber, and that thing would just move around like rubber and fall apart. And one of the things that I thought of is, what if they could use that for glass, and literally, like, when he turned that machine off, I mean, it solidified immediately.
Mm-hmm.
What if it would be like you could work your glass in the thing, and then as soon as you take it out, it's already set and good to go? That'd be so cool.
Yeah, and it's not hot either. It just changes the molecular properties of it and softens it up.
Yeah, or a frequency annealer. Have it to where
mm-hmm.
you could actually, like, anneal your pieces on a molecular level, like to where they are sonically bonded. You don't have to worry about anything ever breaking. Like, I would assume maybe even the tensile strength of maybe some metals. That would be cool. Because I've seen some experiment one time where they turned glass into a metal of some type. It was like a metal glass, and they had different ball bearings, steel ball bearings, and they had like dropped the steel ball bearing on normal glass, and it just kind of thudded and bounced a little bit, but they threw it on that metal, the one that was changed to metal somehow, and it would just bounce and bounce and bounce like that thing was just rubber.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Huh. That is super crazy. Huh.
But yeah, all the potentials that could happen from technology. Now you got me talking science and stuff.
Yeah, so how do we get back onto the glass topic?
Man,
that's
a good question.
Well, I guess if anything, I'm curious how you got started with your sales. You said, early on as a young degenerate underage child going to head shops when you shouldn't be. You're influenced and inspired by all this glass you saw, So at what point in time did you get yourself out there and start selling your own stuff?
Well, that's a good question, because I did try one time before I'm going to call my official sell my official sell. But I did try one time a long time ago, and I was living in some apartments, and I really didn't have a good kiln at the time. I just had like this small janky setup, and I was nowhere near as good as I am today. Like, to the point to where I really wasn't even melting the color in like I should have been. And I went to my first little sale, and they gave me a mercy sale, and that. I mean, I'm not going to count that one as my first official sale, because the one that I want to say is my first official sale was whenever I went over to Pipes Plus in Austin. And that was the story I was talking about when I saw Micah Evans' piece.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I mean, it just put my glass in perspective. Because at that time, I was already like, yeah, I'm good enough to go into a head shop and sell my stuff. And I went up in there, And I was like, I am not good enough to sell my stuff in a head shop. My stuff is nowhere near where I want it to be. But before that, I was super confident. But then I looked at all of his glass that he had in there, of course, and he was super humble. He bought some pieces from me, and he even made an agreement that later on in life, if he still had them, if I could trade them out. So once again, it was still kind of a mercy sale, but it was a legitimate sale.
Hell yeah. So have you gone back to trade your shit out yet?
Well, I actually did. I went probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and he had asked me if he could trade one of my pieces out because it was still around. And I actually tried to give him 2 pieces, but whenever I went over there to go see him, I wasn't able to give it to him in person. So I just left it at his shop, so I never got to see his reaction.
Nice. Did you get the piece back, like the old one back from him?
Yeah, but I mean, that just went up in storage, and I don't know exactly what I did with it. I think that it got lost in my storage, the unit that kind of got lost a long time ago.
Yeah.
Out of storage, and it got rained in, and about half the stuff got ruined. I just threw everything away.
Oh, that sucks. Fuck. So from there, how'd you go about getting sales?
All right, the sales thing was pretty interesting. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. Very, very first off, I tried to make schedules with shops that I thought would be good shops, but I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to bring. I wasn't sure. So I'm going to say a good 4 or 5 first sales were just me kind of filling it out, and I really didn't sell too much. I mean, it may have been just a little bit to scrape by and buy some more supplies, but that was about it. And then whenever sales started picking up a whole lot, is once again whenever I met Elena. She was my first official sale. She wanted a replacement bowl for her piece. So I said, okay, I'm going to attempt this. And I did that, and she was like, well, have you gone on any sales? And that's when I told her about that one little janky sale that I had going on. And she had said, it's cool, just practice. You know, and she just gave me all the encouragement she could. And I practiced and practiced and practiced. And it really lit a fire under me, really, because before that it had been a hobby. But after that, I don't know, something switched into my head. I wanted to make money off of it. Before, it was just something that I did because I loved it. But then, like, I saw that I could actually make a living off of it. But, I mean, I couldn't at the time, but I saw the potential of being able to make a living. So I worked harder and spent long nights trying to figure out my style and whatnot. And, I mean, I had a couple inspirations come through every once in a while, and I'd make some stuff. And basically, I was pushing myself every day. Oh, and another thing that I used to do is I would webcam up with some other glass artists online. And that's another thing that really helped out, because up till that time, I had never been around another glass artist while they were working. It had just been me.
Huh.
And I didn't know how other people worked, like the different tools that they used. Like up until that time, I didn't even use a water quench bucket to put my pieces in. I just had like a little pad that I had in front of me that I would bench comb my little tiny pieces, and I'd sweep them off whenever I was done. But I saw that they would use a quench bucket and quench their stuff, and I was like, God, why have I not been using this? This is perfect. But, I mean, that was another big leap, being able to learn from them, because then I was able to ask, what did they do as far as sales? And they gave me their pointers. They told me their different shops, and then I got to see them whenever they would go out on sales. They would be like, I'm going out on a sale. I'm going to be going to XXX shop, you know, like the such and such shop, and they'd plan out like 3 or 4 shops. And I was like, okay, that's the way to do it. So instead of just trying to go to one place and putting my eggs all in one basket and getting discouraged whenever they said they didn't want to buy my stuff, you plan a bunch of places and be able to know that even if you go to your last spot and you don't have anything, I mean, you can reschedule your last spot and say, hey, I ran out, and can I hit you first next time? And normally that works out way better, because that shows to them that you're actually making sales and you got glass worth buying.
Yeah. I think also too, though, man, that it really speaks to the importance of having samples and never selling your samples, no matter how fucking desperate you are. Because if you run out of glass, that's a good thing, and then you just go to your next shop and be like, hey, here's my samples, and then potentially get orders ahead of time from that that way.
Well, it being that time too, so early on in my career, I didn't have an established style.
Okay.
And I didn't really have anything that I had like as a line of pieces that were my pieces.
Right, that makes sense.
At that time, I was just trying to make stuff that I saw, colors that I liked, put them in the same pieces that I could make. And I mean, really, it was mainly the color and not the body style. And it got to the point years later where I started developing that. But it had always been that spiral. I wanted to do it, but there's no way I could have sold my spirals at that time. I didn't have nowhere near the skill to do it. They just looked kind of like I don't know, I was bridging them all the way, so they almost looked like a spiral staircase, bridged all the way to the tip. Just because I didn't know how to do the curl and I couldn't keep it steady enough to keep the curl nice and flowing evenly and making a nice tapered spiral. But yeah, as far as like sales goes, once I started going the different sales runs, I had multiple shops scheduled, man, things went so much smoother. I was able to schedule places that were out of town, like 4 or 5 hours away, and have confidence that everything is going to be okay. I mean, I've only had one time where I went out and I didn't sell anything, and I literally went to 2 different places, and it wasn't because I had bad glass either. It was because the trade shows have come around. That's another thing that hits. Whenever trade shows come around, sales slow down because head shops are buying from trade shows. So I know that there are some slow months in the glass game, and I know a lot of artists can relate to me.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, it's the frustrating part of this. Yeah, definitely. Because I know a lot of shops that have the same thing, dude. I've gone to these shops and they've been like, "Yeah, we're holding off for the trade show. It's next month or 2 months later or whatever." It's like, all right, why don't you guys just buy fucking local instead?
Exactly, and I mean, I can understand that they get the best of the best there, and people. Whenever I tried to do a trade show, I probably should have invested in a better one, but I went to the CK Expo in New Orleans, and I had that same mindset that I was going to go out there, sell my pieces, gain orders enough to fill for the rest of the year. But that's the way that they normally do is the people that are established, I would say established, like they have a line. Like I feel confident enough that I could say that I'm established and I have my own pieces that are my signature pieces. But people have, that's what that's for. The trade shows are for people that already have their established pieces and know that they can make 100 of these and they're going to look exactly the same every time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went over there and I feel like I kind of bombed it because I did bring a lot of my stuff that was like my signature at the time, but it wasn't refined like it is today. Like today, I don't think I'm going to change I don't think I'm going to tweak it too much more if I do anything to it. I think that it's pretty much at the point where I'm happy with it. But before, I don't know, I feel like they could see that whenever they were going up in there and they were looking at my pieces because they were different. They were so unique. Like I had pieces that had multi-chambers, and that was before I learned that the more chambers it has, the harder it is to clean. And, it's just different things that people are, meticulous about, that they want pieces that are going to be chugging in a certain way. They're not going to be too airy. They're not going to have too much of a restricted pull. They don't want to make it too hard to clean. And all of these things you got to keep in mind whenever you're trying to come up with stuff.
Yeah.
That was really a lot of the factors that determined what my pieces were going to look like, is making them not only look good but function good. Like when I saw Mike Evans's piece, one of his pieces, or actually most of his pieces, have restrictions in them. And I love that part about it because when you put water in there, they just bubble all through those restrictions. And I tried to do that, but I couldn't do it at first. And putting them in my pieces and trying to sell them like that, it was frowned upon. And it really, I don't know, I feel like it kind of hindered me, like I was almost biting or something like that. And that's one of my main experiences with biting is doing restrictions. So I did them, and I don't know, I feel like that just, it put a mark, like this guy is just trying to copy or whatever. So that's another big push to try and have my own style. Because I definitely didn't want to bite, because it is very frowned upon. I mean, at least it was.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of people understand now.
Yeah.
Oh, they understand now that there's only so many shapes you could make. And,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm sorry.
But it's still, I still like to, I think it was Joe Scar who said it on the show, but the whole, imitate until you can innovate. And I still think it's something for a new glass artist to do. It's not a bad thing. It's not like you need to go out there and post the stuff on your social medias necessarily, saying, hey, look what I did, and it's like a fucking, going back to the old Shelbo Goblin heads, that people were getting shit about for copying his style for so long. But it's, if once you find your little thing, then you can, post something that you made, that's your style, that's your voice onto your social medias, just in terms of showing off what you're doing. But, yeah.
That's the hardest thing for me. I suck at social media. I need to post more.
Oh, dude, I'm still learning. Same here. I'm in the same boat with all these algorithm changes and all this other shit going down. I
know, right? I mean, I heard one time you're not supposed to edit it or change anything once you post it. And I don't know. I feel like, maybe also too, a lot of people that have a lot of followers, maybe they had bought some of the followers, and a lot of them are fake profiles and stuff. But I mean, I can't say that with everybody. A lot of them, it's just how you market yourself. And I'm not that good at marketing, apparently.
Yeah, so
that's why I'm glad I have Elena.
Yeah, I was about to say that brings her in the picture for you, which, like we talked about pre-show, I want to bring you guys on and talk about that because I think it's a fun dynamic that you guys have that team build, to work together to really be successful at what you guys are doing.
She is an awesome artist too, and I can't let that take away that she's just not like my secretary or something. She is an awesome artist as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like she too. She just is not out there and not recognized. Like a lot of times, whenever people see my pieces and they see her pieces, they think that I made her pieces, and they're surprised that she made them. And
interesting.
I don't know. It's just weird like that. I guess having a partner, but I mean, it does say on our profile it's Rex and Elena. And I probably do need to post more pictures. That is the main problem. We need to have more stuff. Yeah, I definitely love to get her up here and talking to you. I'm sure she would love to do that. Right now she's taking care of the baby, and I'm just kind of doing the interview right now.
Hell yeah. Well, I appreciate your time and her helping out on that side of things for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It did help out a lot. And if we do this again, I may just let her do it. She may just do an interview by herself. That way I can take care of the baby.
Yeah, we could do that, dude. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to have her on.
Unless you just wanted both of us, then I could, whatever, to leave her with her Mimi, and she can go visit Mimi while we do the interview.
Yeah. I mean, we can bring her on and then have you just jump in at some point.
Well, however it happens, I'm sure she would like it. Because she is part of this, too, and I can't take anything away from her because she's definitely been here throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, it sounds like she's helped you build that foundation, which is important.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with all the things you're into. she keeps you on track.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the things, too. Without her, I wouldn't be able to research any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if I'd have time, or I'd probably still be working another job, or I might be a glassblower. Who knows how life would have went? But I mean, as far as like the way that it has unfolded for me so far, I think that it has happened for a reason, and that I am in my little spot where I'm at, so I can do what I'm doing currently. And I mean, all the things that we've talked about, I mean, all of that is just some of the stuff that may come to fruition one day. And hopefully, whether it be through the book that I'm writing, or me actually bringing something forth into the world. I would love that. I mean, I love doing glass blowing, but how cool would it be to be known for a guy that invented something?
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why I think it's so important to have hobbies outside of being a glass blower, to have other interests, because it's so easy just to get sucked into this daily routine over and over and over again. Next thing you know, you're super introverted and having social anxiety disorder bullshits and, all the things I went through.
Exactly what I was going to say. Being able to take a break, because you do get discouraged and depressed sometimes, especially if things aren't going too good, like we were talking about the trade shows coming by, and then you start scraping by and wondering what's coming next or whatever. And, I mean, it's good to have that. Like me, I have a garden. I have an awesome garden. I just got a tiller the day before yesterday that a friend of mine let me borrow, and I'm going to expand it. But I mean, we grow all kinds of food, and that makes it to where I can feed my baby fresh vegetables. It's something that brings me joy that's other than glass blowing. And it's like a sense of accomplishment. And it's like you're saying, people need to have hobbies. That sense of accomplishment keeps you going in other things, too.
Yeah, it certainly does. Like when I had Lacey on, she had talked about how she felt really her whole identity was wrapped around her glass, and she kind of like lost who she was until she stepped away from the glass and realized that had happened to her, and you don't really, I guess in a sense, you don't really get to see that perspective until you step away from it from a bit. Even if it's for a couple days or whatever, you kind of look back and reflect on what you've been doing for the last couple of years, which on a side note, I think is so important for everybody to, at the end of every year, to reflect on the year. Look at what was good, what was bad, what'd you do differently, what can you do differently, blah, blah, blah. And then you can really see where you can start inserting other things into your life that are positive, that are going to get you out of the studio, to get you out in the fresh air. And, because this, like you're saying, dude, we're blessed to have this type of lifestyle to where we can design it and do whatever it is we want to do. If you want to be single and travel the world as a glassblower, if you want to have a family, I mean, whatever you want to fucking do, the opportunity's there. It takes a lot of work, don't get me wrong, and it's not easy, but opportunity knocks, you got to fucking take it and do it.
Yep. And that goes along with me saying, listen to your intuition. Whenever that opportunity comes to you and you get that idea, act on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you may not have that opportunity an hour later or a day later, however long you wait. It may just be right then. And that's why you were called to do that right then.
Yeah, exactly.
I found that out a lot of times.
Yeah, dude, same here, for sure. Good and bad, for sure. Because it's like the whole idea of having doors open, and those doors may only ever be open for you and nobody else. And if you don't walk through them, you'll never get to experience what that opportunity was going to be for you.
Yeah, it makes me think of like how you signed on for Disney. How are you liking that?
Oh, dude,
you're loving it.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I never dreamed, like, as a kid growing up as an artist, I always wanted to be an artist or animator or something for Disney of some sort, just because it was just something I always wanted to do as a place to work. Never in a million years did I ever think I was going to be a glass artist, much less now sitting there creating characters in glass. Like it's still surreal for me, and I still, every single day I go there to work, I appreciate the opportunity that I have to go. And because I know one day it may not be there. When they hired me, I said, hey, I'm going to be here the next 25 years, which I still want to be. But, it's one day may come where I'm not there. Or I might get fired. I might do some stupid shit because it's my personality. Who knows? But, it's definitely, for me, it's a lot of work. I bust my ass. It's a long fucking day, and I'm sore. My hands right now, I just did 2 days in a row. My hands are killing me from all the big heavy shit I've been working on. But it's a childhood dream come true. And now that I'm at a point where some of these newer opportunities that I'm having, like once I have my Figment got approved finally after 6, like talking about some fucking trial and error, dude, like 6 months and 12 revisions it took me to get this character down to where it went from the first piece I made where I looked at it, I'm like, this is amazing, I nailed it. And then I look at the one I did now that's actually been approved it's night and day. It's like my version and now it's their version, which is the one I'm supposed to make. And now I got to figure out the aspect of making them over and over and over and over and over again, muscle memory production side of things. But now that I've got this baby Groot that's on the board for me to start doing next, I feel like my entire life I've been working at art of drawing characters and reading comic books and all this other shit to 18, 19 years of glass blowing. Everything has now led up to this opportunity that I have, which I may not ever have had unless I did all those things to get to that point. It's pretty amazing.
Do you ever have like rough days to where stuff just doesn't work out for you?
Oh, dude, all the time. And what I've had like 3 meltdowns on stage, like literally, like where the last one I got to a point where I was working on a horse, and it was a custom piece for a guest. And I don't really make horses, at least at the time I didn't, but I kind of had an idea because, going most of my like 13 years before going there was all blown glass. So everything we do there is mostly solid sculptural work. So initially when I got into the position, there was a couple things that I could make sort of kind of that were solid. And I had to learn just from doing it there on stage and then fine-tune things and blah, blah, blah. And making horses wasn't a thing I'd never done before. I'd seen them done, blah, whatever. So I got to a point where I got so fucking frustrated. I was looking up at the guests, and I kept myself from saying it, but I almost said show's over as loud as I could. But instead, I literally just dropped everything out of my hands, like hot glass, my tools, on my bench, made a big fucking bunch of noise, and turned my shit off and walked off stage. And after I did that, I sat in the back, took a deep breath, went for a little walk backstage, went back on stage, and then started doing my thing. And it made me realize that I have this opportunity to get frustrated. I'm being paid to be frustrated, so I got to just understand I got to blow this off and just get back out there and do it. Now, I didn't finish the horse. I left it for Miguel Arribas, who's one of our artists. The dude's a fucking... He's not only a master sculptor, but he's just he's an amazing human being. But dude, this guy's just incredible. To watching him work. So I asked him, I left a little note for him to remake the horse for me, and then he left me 2 of his horses, and all it was the body and the back legs, and the punty was attached to the tail. That's like at the point of the process. He'll do like the body, add the back legs, and then make the tail and leave your punty on there, so then you can do the head and the front legs or whatever. But that was just the back half. He left like the horse's ass, basically. You know, he said, "Now, okay, I need you to make me 10 of these things." And he was out of town for a week, so he didn't show me or anything. And I spent 2 days trying to figure out how the fuck he made a tail. You know? Now that I've gotten past the frustration, I can do it. You know. But that being said, it made me become humble again, because it's so easy to, when you're being told all day long, you know, "Oh my God, you're so talented, you're amazing." You know, I constantly hear this all day, and I appreciate every single person that takes a second to tell me how they appreciate what I'm doing. You know, I don't take it to my head or any of that. It's just, I'm very humble about it and appreciative of it. And that was that point in time where I realized, like, man, my ego has got to go away when I'm learning this stuff, which then led me to going into the furnace and working in the hot shop. I realized when my ego was in there, I made a fucking mess. When my ego was outside and hanging out by itself, I can go in there and actually get some shit done and, you know, not try to be the best fucking glass blower on the earth. So, on that whole tangent there, that's, you know, it's definitely an opportunity, dude, that every single day that I go, and I appreciate. And not only because as an artist, it's something I've always wanted to do, but I'm also a huge Disney nerd on top of it all. So I still skip down Main Street with my fucking ears on my head at 41, almost years old. So, you know.
You gotta stay like a child at heart. You're only old when you say you're old.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Yeah, I wondered if you had any kind of hard times, because I know that you have your live audience, I assume, and you have. I didn't know you took custom orders. I have like a couple of stories where I don't really want to take custom orders anymore, period, because I had to go through that. But yeah, I actually wanted to do a Dumbo piece that was sitting in a bathtub, and I had sculpted the elephant, and everything came out perfect. It was beautiful, right on, picture perfect. And then I got to the bathtub part, and the brown that I was using was a cadmium brown, and it was old stock, so it bubbled horribly. And I couldn't get it to go right, no matter how much I babied it. So then I tried to wait for the NeoCads to come out, and the NeoCads never brought out a brown right away. So then the customer was all unhappy that I didn't get his piece finished. And I mean, by the time it was done, I wound up spending $1,000 to make his piece, and then he wanted a refund.
Yeah, man, been there, done that. Yeah, when it comes to my pipe game, I stop. I'm not really doing like I have a couple customs right now that I'm finishing up. That I have customers that have literally been waiting 2 years for these pieces, and it's just because of the way my life has been the last year and a half. I just haven't had opportunity. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure I could have done here and there, but you know, you have to be in the right mental state to really get shit done. And
I completely understand.
You know, so yeah, I'm not taking custom orders on pipes anymore. Now, other things like I'm doing memorial pendants and paperweights, you know, using ashes and stuff from people. You know, that kind of stuff I'm taking, and I do orders on. But yeah, when it comes to functional work, I'm done doing customs.
Yeah, same here. I learned my lesson. I mean, if we want a custom, I suppose I can do a custom color on the things that I like doing. But man, just being like, hey, can you make such and such, you know, a character? Because I used to be all about it, because I feel confident enough that I can. But the materials, however, may be a limitation, and I can't just willy-nilly accept requests and be like, oh yeah, I can do it, and you know, just be all cocky like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And when it comes to like the custom orders, there, like I can't do any kind of licensed, trademark, copyrighted anything. Even Disney characters, I can't make that are custom for guests. Like once we get it approved, I can't change anything. The pose, the color, nothing it has to be exactly that, like it was approved to be made. But but I say yes to almost every single person that asked me for something else, and only one person I've had to give a refund to, and this guy wanted me to make him an alpaca, and it looks like a llama, so I made it kind of look like a llama, and he says, it looks like a llama, and I was like, I know, it's the same fucking animal, kind of, sort of, so here's your $50 back, you know, kind of thing, you know, whatever, I had fun making it either way.
Yeah, that's not bad, that's not too bad. Yeah, I get customs every once in a while, like around Christmas time, people want Christmas ornaments, and depending on who it is, like I got asked to make like a nativity scene one time, and I mean, it's just random stuff that'll come in, or older ladies, they'll want something, and it's always something they're a little fancy, like one of them wanted a glass salt, which is back in the day before we had salt shakers, they had these little spoons that would distribute your salt, and you have your little like tiny vase that you put your salt in.
Yeah, yeah.
And they call it glass salts. So yeah, I've definitely made a few of those, and like I don't know, just we go to the plant exchange because well, I don't know if anywhere else has anything like this, but twice a year where I live, they have this thing called the Southeast Texas Plant Exchange, and people basically go through their garden and take all the cuttings and stuff that they can that's extra in their gardens, and they'll put it in little pots that are, they're disposable pots that they've had laying around, and then they'll take them to the plant exchange, and it's from like 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. But during that time, people just swap out plants, and there's no money involved. I mean, unless you're buying raffle tickets to, like, put raffle tickets in the raffle stuff. Everybody just swaps out plants. But I've gotten so many plants from that thing. It's pretty awesome. I've gotten different fruit trees, and I don't know.
That's super cool.
Pretty much got off subject. I lost what I was going for here.
Yeah, custom stuff.
What were we talking about?
Talking about custom orders, and maybe it's something that you brought to the plant place or something.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. Thank you. You brought that back. Okay, so yeah, whenever I went over there, we brought like little custom fairy garden stuff. People have been doing this thing called fairy garden, and they basically just make little chairs and tables, and they make little food items and stuff that are all plasticky, and they put them outside for their fairy garden, quote unquote, and that's just a little decoration that they put out there, and that's one of the things we brought this time for the plant exchange.
Nice. That's fun.
But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that you make. That's just random custom stuff that people will want. Like, you never know. Just keep your mind open.
Yeah,
you can make all kinds of stuff out of glass.
Yeah, I completely, dude. And for me, like, I was open to custom orders because for me it was like, okay, I get this custom order, and then that ends up spawning or sparking an interest to make something like it, or a new idea or a new concept or whatever, because it's something I've never made before. So those are the ones that were always intriguing to me. Just kind of see, okay, how can I make this, and then how can I make it again, or make it, a little different or whatever in a production sense of things. So that kind of shit I definitely appreciate. Like, for instance, I had a guest come in at work about 2 weeks ago before Mother's Day, and she asked me if I could make it was supposed to be a Dumbo piece, and I'm like, well, I can't make anything Dumbo, but I can make a quote-unquote elephant with big ears. So it was she had found this pendant online, and it was just basically like a mom elephant head with the trunk holding the little baby in the trunk, and like from the movie from Dumbo. And so I was like, yeah, I've never done it before, but I would love to try, and fucking nailed it. And it's spawned a whole new idea for me to start making these more often, make a little, maternity or for expecting mothers, like there's so many niches out there we can get into with glass. So it's like, again, that's why I appreciate getting some kind of custom orders at times, because it definitely sparks new ideas and interest in things something that you just may never have thought of making.
Yep, that is true, and that is a lot of the things that I have on my profile on my Instagram. Just about every one of them are customs, like the Yoshis. Like, I wouldn't have thought to make Yoshi, but a friend, like one of the shops that had bought the majority of my stuff, was like, hey, can you make a Yoshi? And at the time, I didn't know that there was 3 other glass artists making Yoshis.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, yeah, I'll try to make a Yoshi. So I whipped it up and made it the best that I could. And I mean, he loved it, and it just spawned me doing Yoshis for the guy. So I made a couple of them, and then a couple other shops wanted them, whatever. And I didn't want to be the Yoshi guy, but I mean, apparently I make them decent enough. People like them. Yeah,
dude, it's a cute character, and I think the shape of that character is very functional. So I think it's
probably... and there's a couple of different styles that I do too. Like I make it to where the little glass on glass is coming out of his back, and then I make one to where he's sitting down on like a beaker, and then I make another one to where he's actually like laying an egg, and the egg part's the bubble part.
Nice.
It's actually kind of like a double bub.
Yeah.
So you could do all kinds of stuff with that. So you're right. I mean, you never know what one little custom order might bring. It just brought like a whole line of those Yoshis for me.
Yeah, that's killer.
Oh, man, you were talking about hand problems. Like, have you ever heard of the 9 cutting fingers of ninjutsu?
No.
Okay, so I came across this video a long time ago, and apparently it's a hand workout, and they labeled it on their YouTube video the 9 cutting fingers of ninjutsu. But the way that these hand stretches are is for people that basically kind of suffer from like carpal tunnel, and us doing our hand movements over and over, our hands sometimes cramp up. So I noticed that whenever I did these movements, they actually relieved them cramps that were deep down in my hand, and the more I did it, I no longer have it. I no longer have those problems anymore.
Huh, I
just thought I'd mention that to anybody that was listening out there. Like, if you have problems with your hands and you need to learn some stretches that'll alleviate some of that pain, I found a video. It's called 9 Cutting Fingers of Ninjutsu. And apparently it was like an old technique from Japan.
Interesting. I know a lot of my problems relate to my forearm tension, and a couple of different people I've done research on YouTube that were massage therapists. It's like this one guy in particular does videos that are stretches and massages for massage therapists to keep their hands and forearms and and everything in check. And because your thumb is like a main thing that you use in massage, but for us too, our thumbs are a huge factor in what we do, depending on if your hands are up or down, depending on what your positions are going. And for me lately, that's what I've been dealing with, is just that stretching in my tendon and my palm for my thumb, because I'm like right now with the figment that I'm making, it's a 6-inch piece of fucking 1-inch of solid 1-inch glass. So it's not it's not light, and my rod that I have attached to it's a piece of 19. So it's
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot of weight that and the little guy, when he's all said and done, he's probably about 3 pounds. I mean, I think overall he's about 13 inches tall. So it's it's a big, massive piece of glass. And right now, dude, on a 12-hour shift, and I'm on the torch for 10 of those hours, I'm only making maybe 2.5 in a day. So I'm spending a lot of time holding it in weird positions and trying to add legs and arms and whatever to it. So I've been dealing with, like the other day, I've been switching hands, which because over the years of doing glass, I've become somewhat ambidextrous, not with my writing necessarily, but when it comes to glass blowing. So for the longest time, my left hand's been my driving hand, but I've been switching over to my right hand to be my driving hand and use my left hand for my details and stuff. And my right hand was so sore the other day, I couldn't even pick anything up. Like, I could grip. Once I got a grip, I can grip it and it wouldn't hurt. But just the fact of trying to imagine like an open cup, and you try to put your hand over the top of a cup to then squeeze and pick it up. I couldn't even pick the cups up. So,
oh, man.
Yeah, and I was realizing that
from your forearm.
For my forearms, yeah, my forearm tension, which my left arm, because it's been my driving hand for so long, and I was getting a massage once a month, and after my divorce last year, I haven't had a massage since, and that was almost a year ago now. So I have that tension from all the stress from going through my divorce and my move, and then all the glass I've been doing, it's all in my forearms and in my shoulders, and my left hand has developed a slight twitch because of it. And I know once I get that massage and get the relief going, it's going to take me probably a couple different times of going and getting it done, but it's so important to constantly, yoga is probably one of the best things we can do for it. And I know when I was doing my jump rope workout exercises, jumping rope was a huge help in keeping my shoulders and my posture good, keeping the tension out of my shoulders, everything. It was such a huge factor, not only because of the movement, but also because of the exercise and the muscle gain I was getting out of it. But
that's cool. That's
yeah,
a good tip to know.
Yeah, massaging your forearms is probably one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And it's just a slight little thumb pressure that you just walk around your forearms and just kind of wiggle things around and just move. And then also stretching out your palms and your hands like you're talking about. It's just all those little factors, because it's amazing how one little bit of tension in your forearm will then lead up to tension in your shoulder, which then leads to tension in your neck, which then leads to tension in your lower back, which then can go down your legs. And it's just a chain reaction of shit that and you're like, why am I fucking hurting? I feel like I'm 80 years old. What the hell's going on?
No, I totally understand. It's just your muscles compensating for each other, to trying to take up the slack for the ones that's hurting, not feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always like when you get a bad ankle, you baby your ankle by walking better on your other foot. Next thing you know, your other foot's hurting worse than your ankle does. It's overcompensating.
Yep. Man, I don't know. That's the only thing that I could think of is, the main thing of those stretches, it was just kind of like hand yoga. So I would think maybe, have you ever heard of Falun Gong?
No.
Falun Dafa?
No.
So in China, they do this exercise called Falun Gong or Falun Dafa, and it's just slow movements, kind of like Tai Chi. But the way that they do this, it's a series of movements that you kind of hold them in position. And what this does is it puts tension on the main muscles that are normally stressed out, but you holding them there in position for quite a while And once you release them, the release that you get from releasing that is much, much better than like whenever you were to just have that pain just whenever you're at your relaxed state normally, if your arms were to be down. Like they do this thing called, I think it's called like the heavenly circle or something like that. And you stick your arms out kind of like you're holding a big wheel. And you hold it there for as long as you can stand it, and then whenever you go back to your relaxed state is much, much more relaxing because you actually get relief, like you're actually relieved in that position, not like those muscles were stressed. But they go through a series of different stretches that go from all the way to your arms to your legs, and they do the concept of chi, where they're moving chi through your body. And that goes to me, giving credence to that, to like me telling you that your body's energy is negative and that you're pulling in positive energy, or you're pulling in negative energy and eliminating positive. So, I mean, you have this energy flow through your body, and what they're doing is moving this energy with your movements, and it actually benefits your body. So one of the things that they say about the practitioners of Falun Gong is they are one of the main ones that are targeted for organ transplants because they have such a high success rate in an organ transplant. So they'll falsely accuse these practitioners and imprison them and take their organs. And
crazy.
I know it sounds crazy, but once you look into it, like it just gives credence that there's something to this exercise of moving this energy through your body and doing these stretches. Because me, particularly practicing it, like the first time I did it, I noticed an immediate result. I had the fire that was in the middle of my back from me working all day felt much better. The tension that I had in my shoulders, it was much better. And all I did, it was just some relaxing movements. You just kind of move in position, hold it there for a while, and then go over to your next position. And they have, I think, 5 different exercises or something like that. And all of them are just real easy movements and moving your chi through your body.
Hell yeah. I love all that stuff. I actually wrote it down, so I'll make sure I have some links in the show notes about it.
Yeah. Just in case anybody missed it, it's called Falun Gong. And the other one that I mentioned for your hands is called the 9 cutting fingers in ninjutsu. I mean, all that kind of stuff, I obviously came across it for a reason. I was meant to see that because whenever I practiced it, it actually worked. And I feel like that's something that I should share with other artists, especially if they're having these problems. I mean, it kind of sounds silly, like learning some ninja tactics, the 9 cutting fingers in ninjutsu, but I mean, it actually is a legitimate stretch for your hands. And same thing with the Falun Gong, Falun Dafa. You think you're just doing Tai Chi, but this is something that really loosens up your body and those muscles that are giving you pain. And I mean, it may even improve your health because, like I was talking about, these people are in good health because their body is functioning properly.
Yeah.
These exercises actually benefit them in a positive way. Really good.
Yeah, it makes total sense. They're probably in really good balance too, physically, emotionally, and mentally.
Well, yeah, a lot of it has to do with mental too. Like if you're stressed out mentally, that's going to show up in your physical as well.
Oh, and it shows up in your glass.
Oh yeah, that is for sure. I had one of those days the other day. I woke up and I was just on the wrong side of the bed, and I went into the shop and I was like, I just need to get this done. Everything I touched broke.
Yeah,
and I've been doing this for 15 years now, and still I have days where, like, if I'm not in the right mindset mojo, your thoughts, your energy, your chi, your whatever, your intention will transfer into the glass, and you will have a bad time. Even if you do it exactly the way you've done it 100 times before. I was just doing like the same thing that I'd done, one of my production pieces. And by the time I got to the same spot on 2 times, it broke the exact same way. And I was like, I'm done today. And then went inside, ate me something, took a nap, went back outside, got back on it, and it was good. But I wasn't in that same mindset anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
I haven't had that problem since.
Yeah,
you're right, though.
Yeah, dude, I tell everybody that if you're feeling like you shouldn't be in the studio, you shouldn't be in the studio. Go take a bike ride or for a walk or something different.
Yeah, even if it's just for like an hour, maybe even a couple hours, just something to where you get your mind off of it and get your mojo flowing again to where you're right in the right kind of mindset, get your energy right. Because I mean, even like how we're all connected and we have the same kind of thoughts, like we're obviously projecting some kind of energy. It definitely affects the glass for sure.
Oh, dude, there's been so many times where I've been in studios with guys I've worked with for years, and one of them will be in a shit mood, and we're all like, "You can get the fuck out of here. You're affecting all of us." Like seriously. We can all feel the tension, and they leave and go do their thing, and we're all like, oh, thank God. And then they come back and they're in a better mood, and it's just better for everybody.
Oh, yeah. I've had that experience as well.
But,
I mean,
in a selfish way, though, for myself, my personality-wise, I'm super positive all the time, and I try to stay happy as much as I can just because I want to have that vibration out there for the world and people around me. But when I'm in a shit mood, every fucking person that comes in contact with me is going to know just from the energy coming out of me. It's the weirdest shit, dude. And it's like I get in this funk, and it's oh yeah, totally. But I almost do it intentionally, which is not good.
See, and I know this sounds kind of weird. I don't know if I should be segueing into that one, but so have you ever heard about the Rh negative blood types?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not super familiar, but I have heard of it before.
Yeah, I wonder if well, okay. The reason I'm asking this is because a lot of the times when you hear somebody that's able to be empathetic or have some kind of emotion that can rub off onto other people, or be able to understand people in depthly, or even have some kind of deja vu premonition or something like that. Normally those people, you'll see that a high percentage of them may have Rh negative blood. There's something weird about that.
Huh.
I thought maybe, I don't know, do you have that type of blood type?
I don't know, dude. I should get it checked out, though. I'd be interested, because I'm definitely an empath. But I've also I have ADHD, and I've done research on it, and 90% of people that are affected with ADD or ADHD are also super highly empaths. They're affected by people's emotions, and they can affect people by their emotions. So I don't know if there's a connection or correlation with that at all, in a sense, even with the blood type.
I don't know, it just made me think, because, we were talking about kind of that earlier, about how, you were talking about the different people and the morons, and, that all ties in as well, because even the elite people like Adolf Hitler and, the royalty, they have that particular blood type, and they believe that gives them advantages like higher intelligence and stuff like that.
Huh.
I don't know. It's just one of those weird segues that made me think about that. That's why I wasn't sure if I wanted to go on that segue to say anything, but I don't know. It's one of those random thoughts that I had in my mind.
No, I appreciate you sharing it. I'm gonna call my doctor on Tuesday. Because I just got blood work done a month ago, so they still have all my records. So definitely be interested.
They probably know.
Yeah.
All you can do is ask.
Exactly. Well, on that note, dude, I think it'd be a good time for us to take a quick break and thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some glass by crashing the kiln.
That sounds good.
All right, man. This segment of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Zen Glass Studios. Located in the heart of St. Petersburg, Florida, Zen Glass has a wide range of offerings to choose from. Their menu includes one-on-one or group classes in their hot shop or flameworking studio, create your own wine glass, and so much more. If you're a traveling artist, they even have a space to rent that you can temporarily call home. With over 50 years of combined experience, Zen Glass can help you fine-tune your techniques, whether you're a novice or advanced glass artist. For their calendar of events, including info about their Third Thursday studio jams, you can contact Zen at zenglass.com. That's zenglass.com. All right, we are back. Quick, easy. So, Crashing the Killing round consists of 7 questions, and I have not counted them yet, so I'm assuming it's 7, which I probably should count one of these days, because I've been saying it's 7 questions for a couple of years now. But that being said, just want to give me a 30 to 60-second answer on each question. We can also expound upon them as we always do. And the first question I always like to ask, which I probably already know your answer, but I'm going to ask anyways, is if there's any living glass artist that you haven't worked with yet and you want to, who is it and why?
Oh, yeah, you already know. I mentioned that earlier. It's definitely Micah Evans. I've been inspired by his work way before he ever won any contest. I had friends that were in the Metropolis apartments that lived on, the second floor, and they had an amazing collection of his. They told me that they actually got some from him. He lived over there in the Metropolis apartments. So it's I don't know. He's been a big influence throughout my entire career. But if I were to meet anybody and want to talk to him, hang out, whatever, I don't know. I'd feel super humbled if I could do that with Mike Evans.
Yeah, dude.
I feel like he'd be a cool person to hang out with.
Yeah, I think he's still. Last I talked to him, he was in Texas still. So Be a fun connection to make while you're out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah. So question number 2 is your top 5 favorite colors in glass.
Oh, top 5 favorite colors. I'm going to have to say I'm really liking Lava Frit right now. That is really awesome. The Neocad. And then I got Double Amber Purple. That's a good one. Andromeda with its sparkle. That's always a good one to add to any kind of piece if you want to add a little bit of sparkle on any color. And let's see. We got Black Lightning, because even though it's a black type of frit, it's really fumey, and it gives off really good fuming onto your pieces.
That stuff is weird, isn't it? It's such a cool effect it makes.
Oh, yeah. And what else? Let's see. How many colors is that? Is that 4?
Yep, 4 so far.
One more color. What would be my next favorite color? I mean, not really coming to mind. I would say like Star White, but the only reason I would say Star White is because I've tried all the different whites, and that's the one that works best with my torch.
What kind of torch do you work on?
Well, people would be surprised on what I work on. I actually work on a National 8M.
Nice.
It's nothing fancy. It's a little tiny pea shooter, but I mean, I make all the big stuff that I've ever made on that thing. And
Dude, yeah.
I've heard several times that people are like surprised that I make the kind of stuff that I make on that torch.
Well, it's like the Red Max Mafia, man. I've seen some badass stuff being made on Red Maxes. So it's, it doesn't really matter what your heat source is. It's just knowing how to move the glass.
Yeah, it's definitely the artist, not the torch, for sure.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Number 3 is, what is your worst injury in the studio?
Oh, man. That one is a bad one. Whenever I first started, I was breaking down some tube, and I had some 25 millimeter tube that I had set off to the side right next to a cold piece of 25 millimeter tube. And I didn't pull a point or anything on there. I just rimmed it out like a normal size tube, like if they were to flame polish the end. And I picked up that same tube and went to go blow on it and got me a gnarly lip burn. Oh, man, that was horrible because, not only was it a lip burn, but if you were to go hang out with anybody, you have to explain to them that it's not herpes, that you burnt your lip.
Yeah. Oh, man, that sucks. I have never done the outside of my mouth, but I have definitely burnt inside of my lips at least 3 times that I know of. If I can remember.
Oh, goodness. It is a horrible feeling. I mean, it was only a half a second. It was like enough for me to hear the sizzle in my mind to register.
Yeah.
But that's all it took.
And that's enough funny, though, because that's why I was the same way. It was like the sizzle noise, and then my brain's like, what was that? That's not good.
Yeah. And it's like cold.
Yeah.
Cold at first.
Fuck. Yeah, my face hurts just thinking about it. Man. So number 4 is when you're in the shop, do you listen to the radio, watch TV, or do you do both?
Well, I listen to YouTube mainly, and sometimes I'll throw on different podcasts. It depends on who's in the shop with me. Sometimes I'll throw on, if I feel like they're going to be bored with my documentaries, I'm going to put on music. But if it's just me chilling, I'm going to be putting on stuff that, gives me some kind of little information. Like I was talking about how I was researching Dr. Gerald Pollack, and also I have a couple other stations that I listen to, like David LaPointe. That was the one that did the primer fields. And there's a couple other stations that I can't think of right offhand, but normally I'll just go with my YouTube feed of suggested videos.
Heck yeah.
Throw one on, whatever sounds. Huh?
You ever listen to Michio Kaku?
Yeah, Michio Kaku, I've listened to a couple of his talks. I listen to all kinds of stuff. I try to keep a wide variety, and I try not to focus too much on one thing or really put too much into one person. Like they're just, you got to keep your discernment. Yeah. Because, there's always new research coming out. And, they may be telling the truth according to what they know at the moment, but, there may be some new research that's coming out that may contradict them. Like, Dr. Gerald Pollack talking about the 4th phase of water. Everybody thinks that there's 3 phases of water, solid, liquid, and gas, but there's actually what he calls easy water, which is exclusion zone water. So in the phases of gas, whenever you go to freeze water, it creates an exclusion zone on the hydrophilic surface, like on the glass, on the inner surface of the glass where the water is touching. It creates this thing called an exclusion zone, and everything up to, a molecular level gets excluded there, and it's literally like a crystalline phase of water. So that's what I was saying. That's like the base building block for whenever you put it into the fridge and it turns to ice. It always grows from the edges towards the center. Mm-hmm. It's because it's building off of that crystalline structure. And that goes into so much more research. Like, I mean, that little building block could lead to a ton more research and different things. Like I was talking about the water structurizer. One of the things, yes, it does coalesce the bubbles, but as it structurizes that water and it increases, they notice that the spin of water increases this exclusion zone and it makes it bigger. So not only is the water devoid of oxygen and bacteria can't grow, on the walls, the surface of the walls, it creates an exclusion zone where bacteria cannot cling to. So, I mean, it's just those little key details like that that make it to where, you know, different inventions like the water structurizer, it gives credence to why you can understand how these things actually work, and then convince people why they work, or, you know, bring it down to an understanding that they could understand.
Yeah, so neat. Yeah. This makes my brain go in 10,000 places. So
that's what I was hoping this would do. That's why I mentioned those things, because, like I said, you never know. Those little key pieces might be a piece that somebody needs.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. So instead of going 10,000 places, I'm going to stay on track here. And
okay.
The next question is, do you have any glass-blowing themed tattoos?
Yeah, I actually do. I mean, it's not like a pipe or anything, but I got a Cottonmouth King weed leaf logo on my back, and the reason I say it's a glass-blowing themed tattoo is because I actually have one of my pieces in their videos.
Oh, nice.
The music videos. They put one of my pieces in D-Loc, Smoke You Out. I had went to one of their concerts and had my piece, and basically waited for him to have some time to talk to me or whatever, and I got to give it to him. And I didn't even know they put it in the video. It was actually one of my friends that were like, "Hey, did you know your piece is in the video?" And he like sent me the link, and dude, I was super humbled.
Yeah, that's fucking cool.
I suppose that could be my glass blowing tattoo. I mean, I didn't get it originally for glass blowing, but I got it. I mean, I could say that it's for glass blowing because it actually associates that I have a piece in one of their music videos, which is cool.
Yeah, there's a story behind it. Like that's awesome. And I think this goes to show you again, dude, with your personality, how you're someone that takes action, you know? Because if you didn't stand and wait to meet those cats and give them a piece, and then that came from an idea that you had, you know, so.
Pretty much. Yep.
It's cool.
All of it was like, you need to go do this, and then I acted on it. And you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, never know what tomorrow's going to bring. Hopefully be something cool to learn every day, and that just what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, normally that's really what I search for. I'll stay like an hour before I start working and like search for something good and be like, okay, that looks good. And then I'll put it on and just zone out and work.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I do the same kind of shit with my podcast and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I just started listening to your podcast too, buddy of mine. I didn't even know this existed until maybe 2 months ago. And like my buddy was like, "Hey, you know this other glass blowing?" Because they have Torch Talk, and like Torch Talk is cool and all. I haven't got on Torch Talk, and I know a couple of people that are on there. I don't know. They tend to focus on more of like the glass games and like all the aspects of what's going on around them. I don't know. This is more personal. Like you're actually talking to the glass artist, wanting to know what's up. See, and then I don't always watch Torch Talk either. They just do tutorials and stuff, from what I understand.
Yeah. And
like talk. I don't know if they do interviews legitimate like this, but from what I've seen, it was mostly tutorials.
Yeah, it's mostly what it is. I've been on there a couple times, and I did tutorials myself, for sure.
Yeah, so this is nice.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah, it's funny that you said that you came across it, because I like to hear that. You know, like I haven't really promoted the show that much, you know, except through social media and stuff, and I would like to promote it more and get it out there, but I like the organic growth that it's had, and so it's definitely it's fun to hear it, man. It's definitely been a labor of love. I mean, fucking 100 year, like I think you're episode 192. You're gonna be.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was wondering if the numbers corresponded with your guess, and yeah, I am 192, 192nd guess. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go through the archives and listen to some of them.
Yeah, dude, I've had some killer conversations, and for me, there's a lot of reasons, behind the show, but for me, a lot of it is just to get to know my fellow glass artists, and you guys get to know me, and then share your journey and your stories and your adventures and your successes and failures, and help inspire those out there that are listening. So I've gotten a ton of feedback from people that are just like, they've grown up in this podcast, listening to it, and it's helped their glass, it's helped their structure of how they do their businesses, like. It's fucking awesome. I love it. It makes me want to just keep doing this for the rest of my life.
Well, it seems like the set of questions that you ask are really good too. Being able to help out newbies, because a lot of them were like, "What did you do for yourselves and stuff?" And that was the struggle whenever I first began. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of the things people would love to hear, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how it all gets started.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man, because it's like it's so easy to get started, and then you see all this badass stuff out there, and you're like, okay, these guys are successful and whatever. But the reality right now, man, with this industry, and I know we're going completely off topic here, but this industry right now is, I've had a couple guys on and gals talking about it. It's in a weird flux right now, and there's some super amazing, talented people out there that are not doing very well in terms of their sales and making money making a living. It's kind of a weird thing, and trying to figure out what it is, if it's the technology of the vaporizers and the e-cigarettes and the pins coming out, or if it's just the constant bitching and complaining about people not being able to pay their bills. Or it's really strange. The collectors are still collecting, but it's like, I don't know. It's just weird. There's so many different potential things. I have a smoke shop I'm bringing on, which is going to be a new transition for this the show. So I want to start bringing smoke shops on and start talking, sharing their journeys and really try to help reconnect the glass blower to the smoke shop, and then make like I was talking with Box Fan Willie the other day, and we both were like, part of the issue is we need to make glass cool again. It hasn't lost its hype per se, but it's definitely it's weird. It's a weird flux right now.
Yeah, I totally understand, and I had that same conversation. I was trying to figure it out, whether it was like the new influx of glass blowers that were coming in, and like whenever you call shops, instead of them being excited, they're kind of like iffy because they don't know if you're a good artist or not, worth their time. Mm-hmm. And I've had to deal with that a lot, and the trade shows too that come around that make it to where you have to have those stretches in between paychecks. And I don't know. I think it's a lot of different factors, but I definitely see that too whenever I'm trying to get my sales out and whatnot. It's definitely a weird time right now as far as sales goes.
Yeah, and there's no end to the amount of smoke shops. I mean, there's so many fucking smoke shops out there. I mean, every day there's new smoke shops opening up. So it's like there's no reason for sales to be where they are except for whatever the reason is. Yes.
Is it like the algorithms of the different sales things? Because I know they changed all the algorithms on Facebook and on Instagram.
Right.
And you have to like pay for people to see, and if they don't want people to see your stuff, they're not gonna see your stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's something like that. If they're just like, oh, this is another small business guy, let's just not show people. I don't know. Maybe we're in the algorithm somewhere like that.
Yeah, who knows? Hey, man, give me 1 second real quick. My girl just pulled up. Hey, give me 1 second. I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so back on track here. So the second to last question here is, let's see, we got... Yeah, so if you could describe the sound of glass cracking, whether like the actual literal sound of it or more of a spiritual, philosophical word, what would you use to describe it?
Oh, all right. So it's a combination between a pink and a tink, and the actual feel of it is more like anxiety and pain. Because you get that same feeling like, well, for me, it's like whenever you get close to the edge of something and you get that tingly feeling like you're about to fall or something. Same kind of thing, like your blood runs cold a little bit. When you hear that tink in the kiln, especially if it's after a big piece, your blood definitely runs cold. And it's kind of like, oh, man, I don't know, a combination of dread, anxiety, and maybe a little bit of pain because you know what's coming.
Yeah. I haven't ever asked anybody this, but I know I still experience this after almost 20 years, but do you still get like that little bit of butterfly-y adrenaline rush at the very end of making a piece as you're going to the kiln?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I especially baby it right then. Whenever I get to the point where it's right at the end of the piece, that's notorious for break-in. I hear that all the time, but I mean, in my personal experience, before I even knew about that, I've had that happen. So I definitely baby it. I always have my kiln at like 10 or 1100, and I pop that thing in the kiln and I let it come up to temp. And if it's about to be taken off the mouthpiece, I always let it soak in there for at least 5 minutes while it's up to temp, and then I'll go ahead and pull it out and work on it for like 5 minutes, if that, and then put it back in.
Yeah.
But I've had like the elephant piece I was telling you about. That was one of the main things that I've had crack like right at the end. I was literally at the end, putting it in the kiln, and the whole face cracked all crazy. And I was like, oh my goodness, all this work for nothing. It's literally like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, man, been there, done that, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Just on a side note, you said 1100. Is 1100 your working temperature, or is that just kind of the end of towards the end of the piece that you turn it up?
Well, honestly, I've heard a lot of people work lower. They work at like 900, but I've always kept my kiln at 1100, and that's just my personal preference. I doubt that you need to, and I know a lot of people, if they're not doing complicated stuff, then they definitely don't need to. But like the stuff with multiple bridges and different sections and multiple pieces connected to it, I like to keep it at 1100 just to relieve that stress that's in there from the welds and stuff. So, you know, even if they are cooled down and you try to move over to another one and you think you got everything good with all the stresses relieved, even if you heat your bridges and whatnot, somehow or another, somewhere in there, there's going to be some stress just from it warping and pulling a little bitty bit. So putting it in there at that temperature and letting it soak for a second, I mean, it relieves whatever little bit is residual in there.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder too, like in terms of temperature, if it depends on the style of your kiln shape-wise. Because like I've worked in kilns where I've run the kiln at that temperature, and it was because it wasn't that deep. It was more of a shallow kiln. It was tall, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And I wasn't concerned necessarily of having other pieces I was working on getting too hot, because I was always opening and closing the door, you know, that pieces that were previously made. But then when I ran bigger kilns that were really deep and had to, like, you know, especially at work, if I'm doing like a run of octopus or some shit, or octopuses, I have found that if the kiln's too hot, the ones that are been already pre-made, that are made already, have been sitting in there, they tend to slump a little bit. So I've been working my kilns around like 1080 around there. But
really, even at 1100, they would slump.
Yeah, I'd have a little, and I don't know if it was just because of the tentacle being narrow, you know, skinny, not really just
that's probably what it is,
kind of thing. But typically, I run my kiln.
Go ahead.
Also, I usually run mine at 1080, but my kiln cycle is here at my house. It goes up to 1100 and sits there for an hour, and just to relieve all that stress.
Yeah, I normally just ride mine at 1100. I'm probably riding mine hard, and I should have been a little more easy on it, but my kiln's old, and I've had it for forever. It's pretty much on its last leg as it is. I'm about ready to get a new one.
Nice.
I mean, I've done it this whole time. There's no need to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely had success doing that, and I've had a lot of breakage trying to come down, because I did have that discussion years ago, like what temperature did you put your kiln on, and I tried it on different temperatures, and I just stick with the 1100. It just works for me, particularly.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I guess in the end, that's what matters. I mean, I know there's like science behind it, you know, in terms of specifications, but if it works, dude, it works. If you're not having any issues, and you know, awesome.
Yep.
Hell yeah. So I'm trying to think here. We did the glass blower. We did the colors, injury, sound, TV, radio, tattoos. Yeah, I think that's 6. Is that it? Oh, yeah. And the last one is, what are your top 5 favorite tools? And that does not include your glasses, your torch, or your kiln.
Well, I have graphite tools that I've had forever. Whenever I bought my first set, they didn't have composite graphite. They actually had line graphite. So these tools are like legit. whenever I go to sharpen the graphite, it stays sharp. I don't have to worry about a bunch of dust rubbing up on me. I have some composite graphite tools that I can touch, and they'll just leave black behind on my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
But I have these mined graphite that I've had forever, and I work with those all the time, and my hands just stay normal. I don't have any kind of residue left behind. But as far as my favorite tools go, I got my claw grabbers, I got my pencil reamer, which is just a little pencil diameter graphite. I got my bowl push, which is another graphite, and then I got my stamps that I carved myself. I went ahead and spent like 2 days one day, or one week, and like carved out different types of spirals, some in negative and some in positive reliefs. And I found that the one that I carved into the graphite, and it didn't have like a 3D spiral coming off of the graphite, were the best ones, because the glass actually kind of goes in those little grooves when you smash it on there. But since I've done that, all of my pipes, that any marble that I put on there, I'll throw a little spiral stamp on there.
Nice.
So it's just an added something.
Yeah.
That's my signature thing.
Too cool.
I would say probably my graphite and my claw grabber. That's probably my favorite tools. Other than that, I mean, I could probably work with just those tools. Everything else is just glass holders, like my 10 millimeter and my 6 mil.
Hell yeah. What do you use for sculpting?
Sculpting? That is, I actually just got some new tools, but forever I've used a butter knife.
Yeah. I always ask this question. Do you ever use a spoon for sculpting?
No, but I do use a spoon for frit. I shape the spoon out to like the little front part of the spoon.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of made a shovel type deal, and the back of the spoon is just a normal spoon, but it funnels in to where whenever you pour it into the thing, it actually funnels the frit into the tube that you're trying to put it in, so it's not just like pouring it with a normal spoon.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I made a little funnel on the tip to where when you scoop your frit, it pours through that funnel into your tube.
Yeah, it makes sense. You kind of just narrowed it down, made a little bit of a valley in a sense.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a good description.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
yeah, I don't use spoons for sculpting. I use butter knives, and then I got these things off of eBay that are wood carving tools. And another thing that if I were to suggest to people, don't get regular carbon tools. I learned that the hard way, because after like, I'm going to say a month or two, they start to rust, and then you're going to leave different little black crap on top on your glass. If you're trying to sculpt it with the tools, it's going to leave stuff behind. So always go for stainless steel if you're going to be working in sculpting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the spoon I recommend all the time. If you can find a good spoon that's got kind of a rounded handle to it, it's great for doing like little convex and concave shapes. It's good for little curvy cuts, different things like that. Moving glass around.
You're talking about without it being shaped, just the normal spoon itself?
Yeah, dude, I have a spoon I've been using for years. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I never thought to use a spoon. I just normally just use my butter knife. I got the curve that I would need right at the tip. It's not sharp at all, and I could carve pretty much anything with that thing.
Nice.
I suppose you could do that with a spoon too. It's real. Once again, it's not the tool; it's the artist.
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, we've gone all over the fucking place. We've covered everything from science to glass to science. So it's been a lot of fun, man. It definitely was a unique conversation. I miss having these kind of talks with people in general. So it's definitely, I appreciate the conversation for sure, and I hope those listening are still tuned in to our ramblings and all of our sidetrackingness here. But it was definitely a lot of fun. Taught me a lot of stuff, and all this stuff we talked about, I've written all kind of notes, and I'll have links in the show notes for all the different things we talked about, from the hand stretches to the water everything. Everything we talked about will be in there for those that want to check it out and find the links.
Awesome. That is cool. I definitely enjoyed it myself. I had a good time talking. I was a little nervous at first because this is my first time doing anything like this, but I definitely enjoyed it.
Hell yeah.
It was
awesome.
nice.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, before I let you go, man, if you want to give our audience a parting piece of advice, and then where we can find you out there in the world of cyberspace.
Well, you can find us at Blissful Glass on Instagram. You can message us there. Or if you want to find me on Facebook, they changed my business page to my personal page a while back, so it's going to be under Rex Estrada. And you're going to see my logo as my profile picture. You can add me as a friend if you want to on there. I also have a YouTube that has a lot of my older stuff on there, just YouTube Blissful Glass. and you'll see my videos. I normally put Blissful Glass in the name so it comes up. I need to be putting more on there, and I have an email. If you want to contact me directly through email at theblissfulglass@yahoo.com. You should be able to get to me at any of those at any time. So if y'all feel like wanting to get in touch with me, just go ahead and get in touch with me.
Hell yeah. Awesome. And then some parting piece of advice.
Keep at it. Don't give up. Sometimes it's discouraging, but it is well worth it. Once you finally come to that end of the tunnel and things start looking up, it's going to be worth it. You're going to look back and see all your struggles and all those life experiences that you just gained, and you're going to see that it's well worth it.
Hell yeah. Well said. And if anything, man, my biggest takeaway from this whole talk is to, for one, keep a journal. I talk about it a lot, keep track of things. If you have a piece you've made, write down what it took to make that thing. Ideas are good to write down. And then also take action. Don't just talk about shit. Fucking do it.
Yes, I'm in full agreement with that statement. Definitely take action and do keep a journal. I don't know how many times I've told that to people and they don't do it. But I mean, if you really want to do the things that you say that you're going to do, having a journal really does help, because you do forget them. Mm-hmm. And then you try to think about what you're going to do whenever you do have time, and you just don't do it because you don't remember it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome, man. Well, hang on after the goodbye here, and we'll say goodbye off the air.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation with Rex here. It was a lot of fun, and, definitely, if you're interested in the science and the stuff we talked about, I have all the links in the show notes for you to check that stuff out and keep yourself occupied while you're melting the day away. And we're getting into be summertime now, so those that are out there in the heat and the sweating, make sure y'all are staying hydrated. It's definitely super important, and we're going to be getting into some more conversations about that, and we'll get into more health topics and what have you, because, it's also important. And one more thing with this first tropical storm that we now have out in the Gulf, me living in Florida and Rex, you out in Texas, both of us were somehow affected by hurricanes last year, and it's so important to have a plan for an emergency. Get a tucker tote, have a list of all your shit you need, and make sure that if you need to leave your house in an emergency situation, you can pack up your whatever basic supplies you need for yourself, for your torches and your stuff, that you can go work somewhere if you lose everything. Because last year there were several glass artists that lost their entire studios to floods from Texas, and it's important that we definitely keep that kind of stuff in mind. So pay attention, be prepared, because right now, June 1st, we got 4 days away until hurricane season starts, and it's going to start getting crazy. So think about that shit. So anyways, until next time, we will talk to you on the Wise Guy Radio Show. Y'all take care. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletters and podcasts and share with your friends and show the world what's going on here. And we'll talk to you soon. Love y'all. Take care. Peace.
Later. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. For more information or to subscribe to The Flow, go to theflowmagazine.com. That's theflowmagazine.com.